ahead of his Tuesday hearing, Politico published a copy of his opening statement. It's mendacious, hypocritical, aggressive, and inflammatory. He's not going to Congress to make friends or mollify his critics. He's going to spit fire. Here are 5 key takeaways from his testimony. Little buddy, I'm absolutely going to encourage your participation here, but I am going to go first. Number 1, despite being one of the most openly partisan attorney generals in recent history, Barr pledges to keep the Justice Department nonpartisan. Now, the end said, from the statement of Barr, we are in a time when the political discourse in Washington often reflects the politically divided nation in which we live, and too often drives that divide even deeper. Political rhetoric is inherent in our democratic system, and politics is to be expected by politicians, especially in an election year. While that may be appropriate here on Capitol Hill or on cable news, it is not acceptable at the Department of Justice. At the department, decisions must be made with no regard to political pressure from either in a Pennsylvania Avenue or from the media or mobs. I think he's talking about us, Tom.
Number 2, Michael, in the paragraph after pledging to avoid political rhetoric, he launches a strident attack on the Russia investigation and Democrats. And again, a quote from Barr's piece. Ever since I made it clear I was going to do everything I could to get to the bottom of the grave abuses involved in the bogus Russiagate scandal, many of the Democrats on this committee have attempted to discredit me by conjuring up a narrative that I am simply the president's factotum who disposes of criminal cases according to his instructions. Judging from the letter inviting me to this hearing, that appears to be your agenda today. And then the author writes, it's hard to imagine how one can write these 2 paragraphs in succession and not see the glaring irony, but apparently Barr is so steeped in his own warped view of the world that he can't imagine or just doesn't care how his words will seem to outsiders. And I would just add on there, Crudy, he just doesn't care.
Doesn't care.
No.
Pompous ass, I think.
Pompous ass doesn't care. He's a smart man. He knows what he's doing. This is a professional gaslighting statement.
Dominic, number 3 from the professional gaslighting statement. His brazen lies, he brazenly lies and says the president plays an appropriate role in Justice Department matters. An appropriate role, Tom.
Yeah. You know,
again, from the statement of the Attorney General, from my experience, the president has played a role properly and traditionally played by presidents like his predecessors, President Trump and his National Security Council, have appropriately weighed in on law enforcement decisions that directly implicate national security or foreign policy, because those decisions necessarily involve considerations that transcend typical prosecutorial factors. Moreover, when some noteworthy events occurs that potentially has legal ramifications, such as leaks of classified information, potential civil rights abuses by police, or illegal price fixing or gouging, the president has occasionally and appropriately confirmed that the department is aware of the matter. But the handling of that matter and my decisions on criminal matters have been left to my independent judgment, based on the law and fact, without any direction or interference from the White House or anyone outside of the department. Now I read on just briefly. This is absolute nonsense. Anyone paying attention knows that Barr's predecessor, Jeff Sessions, was fired by the president precisely because he refused to improperly intervene in a criminal investigation on his behalf. The events leading up to Barr's appointments are documented in detail in the Mueller report, which completely obliterates the Attorney General's claim. This inevitably puts pressure on Barr, whether he acknowledges it or not, to stay in line. And Trump continues to openly comment on the call for specific outcomes in federal criminal matters on Twitter and in remarks to reporters, often for clearly venal reasons. It is so frequent and so bad that Barr himself has publicly complained about it before. You remember, Dom? I'm happy to say that, in fact, the president has never asked me to do anything. Again, a statement from Bill Barr. I'm happy to say that, in fact, the president has never asked me to do anything in a criminal case. However, to have public statements and tweets made about the department, about our people in the department, our men and women here, about cases pending in the department, about judges before whom we have cases, make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts and the prosecutors in the department that we're doing our work with integrity. Yes, it is impossible for me to believe you are doing your work with integrity.
Crudy number 4, Barr claims all of his decisions are entirely nonpartisan. Here's his quote. When asked to consider returning, I did so because I revere the department and believed my independence would allow me to help steer her back to her core mission of applying one standard of justice for everyone and enforcing the law even-handedly without partisan considerations. Since returning to the department, I have done precisely that. And now the
See, you were giggling before the punchline.
Man, the whole thing's a joke, but let us continue. The author, even as he's engaging in fiery partisan rhetoric and blatantly lying on the president's behalf, Barr paints himself as the last bastion of nonpartisanship in Washington. Whether or not he actually believes this to be true, it's clearly not, and it's shameful that he can't admit it. He indulges in belligerent screeds against secularists and blames left-wing radicals for violence while ignoring right-wing extremists. Before he was appointed Attorney General, he already dismissed the basis of the Russia investigation while declaring that there was more justification to investigate Hillary Clinton. He cheered James Comey's decision to announce the reopening of the Clinton email investigation days before the 2016 election, and then he turned around and cheered Trump's firing of Comey in 2017, which was justified on the grounds of Comey's treatment of Clinton.
I know that was a funny one as well, right?
It is. This is such a professional gaslighting, and what this isn't coming from the traditional politician. This isn't coming from the Senate or the House or the Speaker or the President. This is the Attorney General of the United States. This is an embarrassment.
Dominic, number 5. Barr insisted lawmakers should condemn the protester violence in Portland while making no mention of the extensive abuses by law enforcement in response to the protests. Again, the statement from Bill Barr. As elected officials of the federal government, every member of this committee, regardless of your political views or your feelings about the Trump administration, should condemn violence against the federal officers and destruction of federal property. So should state and local leaders who have a responsibility to keep their community safe. To tactically condone destruction and anarchy is to abandon the basic rule of law principles that should unite us even in a politically divisive time. At the very least, we should all be able to agree that there is no place in this country for armed mobs that seek to establish autonomous zones beyond government control or tear down statues and monuments that law-abiding communities chose to erect or to destroy the property and livelihoods of innocent business owners. The most basic responsibility of government is to ensure the rule of law so that people can live their lives safely and without fear. The Justice Department will continue working to meet that solemn responsibility. And here's the conclusion, Dom. I'll read it quickly. These remarks are clearly not in keeping with this pledge quoted above to keep political rhetoric out of the Justice Department. But more troublingly, it shows that Barr has no concerns for the vast and widespread abuses committed by law enforcement, federal, state, and local under his watch. He condemned the killing of George Floyd, but he also tries to diminish it by painting such incidents as extremely rare. He doesn't mention the violence committed at his command against peaceful protests during the recent clearings of Lafayette Square because he's a bastard person. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. We're talking about the Attorney General, Bill Barr.
Nowadays, these partisan feelings are so strong that people have lost any sense of justice.
I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself.
Well, history is written by the winners, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary-Treasurer at Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
We know small businesses are navigating uncharted waters right now due to the lasting effects of COVID-19 and social unrest. As an independent radio network, we want to support our community. So Talk 1017 FM is announcing Pay It Forward grants to provide advertising to small businesses and help them get back on their feet. To nominate your small business for a Pay It Forward grant with Talk 1017 FM, give us a call at 608-819-8255 or go to talk1017fm.com. Let's get through this, everyone.
Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin on historic Brady Street. The Roman Coin was originally a Pabst Tight House built by Frederick Pabst in 1890 to sell Pabst beer. It was even designed by the same architect who designed the Pabst Theater. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's historic, pet-friendly, cash-only, order in classic corner tavern.
Cut through the bullshit. Get the information the deep state doesn't want you to know. Only on Talk 1017 FM and WRD 1510 AM, Wisconsin's political talk.
Notorious, so notorious.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Join us on the phones anytime at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, of course, the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, testifying on the Hill. And in a related headline, 2 women arrested in the beating of Senator Tim Carpenter during a night of protest in Madison. And you think, oh, those are incongruent headlines, Trudy. Oh, no, they're not. Real quick, from the Journal Sentinel, Patrick Marley, police arrested 2 women Monday accused of beating a state senator as he tried to take video of a crowd that had torn down statues during a protest over racial injustice. People in the crowd attacked State Senator Tim Carpenter of Milwaukee, who has been invited on this fine show today after we recorded them in June. They kicked and punched Carpenter in the head, and he later required surgery.
Damn.
Police released photos of 2 suspects who turned themselves in Monday after they were identified by members of the public, according to Madison Police. Police arrested Samantha K. Hammer, 26, and Karita E. O'Reilly, 33, on suspicion of being parties to the crimes of substantial battery and robbery with use of force. They're both in custody Monday night, according to online records from the Dane County Jail. And does it say here what they did, Dom? Well, we know that people, or apparently the media, had been instructed not to video the protest that night. That was the night they tore down the statues in Madison, right?
Yeah, according to Patrick Marley, Carpenter came upon the crowd and began filming. People in the crowd rushed him, knocked his phone out of his hand. He fell to the ground after he was punched, and about 10 people hit and kicked him. One witness told police. Stunned, Carpenter told them he was an ally and had long fought for the kinds of policies they were seeking. Paramedics treated him, but he declined to go to the hospital that night. A week later, he said he had surgery at St. Francis for injuries he suffered during the attack.
So why is there any congruence between that headline and the headline that Bill Barr is giving testimony? Why, of course, Congressman, Republican Tom Tiffany of Wisconsin, invoked that attack on Tim Carpenter as an example of Antifa activity in Madison. We've got the sound.
Betsy
Tom Tiffany,
Bryan.
Toxic Tom, first public committee hearing that I've seen Tom Tiffany at. Let's play for the people. If you would, Fancy Brian, gonna need your help. Cut 100. I'd like to thank you, Bill Barr.
Attorney General Barr will.
We're not going to make it through
send a
all of
thank
this.
you
It's 5
to the
minutes
law
total, and we
enforcement
only have
people
5
that
left.
work for you,
4 left.
For the work that they're doing here across the United States of America. And I want to thank all the law enforcement across our country. We are an imperfect country, but law enforcement has done they do a good job across our country, and they should be recognized for that.
And Black Lives Matter. Oh, no, he didn't say that.
Of course, there was a black Trump supporter in Milwaukee that was murdered recently, and it's still something of a mystery. Tiffany referenced that as well. Cut 101.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Every
about
cut after
Mr.
this is
Bernal
about a minute.
Trammell from Milwaukee here in just a minute. He was the man who was shot to death at the end of last week. He's the African-American man who was wearing a sign, and he's regularly known around Milwaukee for carrying a Trump for president sign.
Okay.
No, let me just, and we're going to have to probably bring these cuts over to the other side crew. We got like 4 more of them, but I just want to address this briefly as a guy living here in Milwaukee. And I've seen this gentleman around in the past. My understanding, he also, Mr. Trammell, who was murdered, also supported Black Lives Matter. So what my concern is, and I see, guys like Tiffany and guys like Senator Ron Johnson and all these politicians, jumping up, all concerned about the death of a black man in Milwaukee. Why? Because he was also a Trump supporter? That's it? I mean, there are concerns of murders going up in the city of Milwaukee. More than one black man has died from murder in the city of Milwaukee. I don't remember Tom Tiffany or Senator Ron Johnson or anybody else piping up about that, specifically naming that. Do we know that he wasn't killed because of his Black Lives Matter support? I mean, the fact that these Republicans are just going to go out there and throw this man's name out to try to support their assertions that somehow this country is out of control and law and order, and he's killed because it's a political killing because he's a Trump supporter, offering no proof thereof, and totally ignoring the fact that apparently he was also a Black Lives Matter supporter. Now, granted, those are seemingly some different philosophies, and I'm not sure how he reconciled them. I guess we'll never know now. But I am offended by Mr. Tiffany and Senator Ron Johnson and all the others Republicans who pipe up about this one particular killing while ignoring the rest of the murders going on in the state.
Well, they don't ignore the other crimes, especially if they're black on black crimes. They'll use it as justification to vilify and dehumanize the population of Milwaukee, Dom. That's always a useful tool. And Tom Tiffany, he's certainly not above that. More of Tiffany. Well, then he turns his angst towards my hometown and the Antifa contained herein. Cut 102.
But I want to share with you what happened in Madison, Wisconsin, so we all understand that this is not a myth about Antifa. So when the riots hit Minneapolis and then extended around the country, they hit Madison, Wisconsin also. And I don't know if you've ever visited Madison, Wisconsin. There's an iconic street there called State Street. Starts at the Capitol and runs all the way down to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that street, if you go there now, 75 businesses are boarded up as a result of a mayor and city council who would not protect those people. Those people went to the city council last week and they asked for some assistance. The city council, who would not protect their business, they said, no, we're not going to provide you for assistance.
Well, that's every example you need, Tom Tiffany, that Antifa exists. Well, the city council didn't give financial support to the business owners on State Street. And while I did take some issue with that personally, I would point out their explanation was every owner on State Street was either white or was not black. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, more Tom Tiffany, more Bill Barr, and you on the phones as well. 844-967-2789.
The manufactured outrage by the Democrats right now is hilarious.
It's snitty.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday. I'm Stephanie Hoff, your host, and this podcast is brought to you by Spectrum. Early in-person voting for the August 11th primary begins today under a federal appeals court ruling from earlier this summer. Papa Buddy is on the line with me today for more on that August 11th primary. And people who want to vote early, they only have 2 weeks to do it.
That's right. And Stephanie, we talked about this lawsuit last month when the decision first came out. And essentially what the argument here was from Republicans was that everyone should have the same opportunity to early vote. The counter to that from Dems was that there's no reason that Madison, with a population of roughly 260,000 people, should have the same early voting window as a place where the population is closer to 2,000 people. So that's the dynamic at play here. Remember, this has been in the works since a ruling in 2016 put a hold on this, as well as a couple other measures. But a federal appeals court last month really restricted this down to 2 weeks in all places across the state.
So, Pat, have larger municipalities like Madison or Milwaukee, have they said that they're expecting an influx of people to get their vote in? Are they set up to handle that right now during a pandemic?
Well, Madison has traditionally been the most accessible in terms of offering early voting opportunities, and that looks like it's going to continue. So the city of Madison announced it's going to provide 13 drive-up voting locations starting today, along with absentee voting outdoors. The city is also taking a number of steps to minimize the chances of an exposure to COVID-19. That includes having clerks check voter ID through vehicle window, having clerks wear face masks, disinfecting pens, clipboards, and envelopes that each voter use. Voters also have the option of bringing their own black or blue ballpoint pen in order to mark their ballots.
One of the races that will be on that August ballot is the 3rd Congressional District, and that's had some Twitter attention from Vice President Mike Pence.
That's right, Stephanie. Now, this, of course, is Dem U.S. Rep. Ron Kynes' district, which did go for Trump in 2016. Now, he faces a primary challenger, but on the other side, there are 2 Republicans vying for the opportunity to challenge likely him when it comes to November. So let's start with Republican Derek Van Orden, who got this endorsement from Pence. Now, he's a retired Navy SEAL, and Pence praised his, quote, immense real-life experience, saying that he's going to fight for the people of the Badger State. Now, an interesting political dynamic going on here, Stephanie, is that while Pence endorsed Van Orden, the House Freedom Caucus, which is, of course, a very conservative, sometimes adjutant wing of the Republican Party in the House, endorsed his primary challenger, which is a young woman by the name of Jessie Evan. Now, what's interesting about that, Stephanie, is that, as I mentioned with the House Freedom Caucus, this is traditionally a group that has been very comfortable opposing mainstream Republicans. The interesting thing about that, though, is that they are essentially mainstream themselves now. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, when he was a congressman from North Carolina, founded the Freedom Caucus, and he chaired it as recently as 2019. Of course, now he sits in the White House running the day-to-day for Donald Trump, while the vice president is endorsing the other pick. So a little bit of an interesting dynamic to watch there.
Thanks, Pat, for shedding some insight on that. And don't forget, you can keep up with primary candidates on the WisPolitics.com election blog. Until tomorrow, I'm Stephanie Hoff. Thanks for tuning in.
This has been WisPolitics Midday. For more state government and political news, visit WisPolitics.com.
Supplying your political fix in the back roads from Horicon to McGuanago on WRRD 1510 AM, Wisconsin's Political Talk.
The big and tall of political talk. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show today. The big headline: Bill Barr testifies. It's been a year. They've been waiting a long time. House Judiciary Committee, now chaired by Nadler, and the grilling, it was hot and heavy for Barr, and the pompousness and the condescension, it was hot and heavy back from Barr. And Tom Tiffany invoked Tim Carpenter, and the attack on him is proof that my hometown had been overrun by Antifa, Dom. And also there was some bemoaning of the loss of some statues. We got a little more Tom Tiffany sound. Let's play it all. Tom, you make me so proud when you bemoan the loss of property, the destruction of some statues. Cut 103.
Shortly after State Street was destroyed. And by the way, it's disappointing in some of the
street's still there, Tom.
Film that I've seen that the police cruiser that went flaming down State Street was not included in that. But shortly after that, about a week afterwards, two monuments at the state capitol that I used to walk by all the time were torn down. One was of Hans Christian Heg, who was the abolitionist Norwegian immigrant who died at Chickamauga defending the Union and providing for the end of slavery, fighting for the end of slavery here in the United States. The other monument that was torn down, by the way, they took a tow truck and tore it down, was Lady Forward. Lady Forward is there because of women's suffrage. Wisconsin was the first state to pass suffrage back in the early 1900s here in the United States of America. Those were torn down.
Isn't it quaint when Tom Tiffany talks about women's suffrage and Black Lives Matters, like he gives a damn about women or Black lives? Like, this abolitionist statue, you weren't for freeing up the slaves as near as I can tell, Tom.
But it supports his concern, quote unquote, about the Antifa, the anti-fascists. I think we should continue to say what that really means. Tom Tiffany is concerned that there are anti-fascists in this world. I'm betting you, Tom, your parents probably, or your grandparents, I'm not sure how old you are, sir, were anti-fascists when they fought in World War II.
Well, Tom will assure you, Antifa is real and probably, being indoctrinated in the schools. Cut 104.
Just yesterday, a woman, a social worker who teaches at a local school just outside Madison in Mount Horeb, she was charged with beating a state senator, a Democrat state senator. Her name is Samantha Hamer. Hopefully she will be given justice. But I want to emphasize to my colleagues on the left that if you think you're insulated from Antifa, which is supposedly a myth, you should really think about that, because them and other radicals, they will not spare violence on anyone. Their anarchy is meant to destroy our country. And I would ask you to, if you want to contact a former colleague of mine, State Senator Tim Carpenter, a Democrat, he'll tell you he was beat to a pulp on that night at midnight when they were tearing down those statues. It is not a myth.
Where do I join the Antifa, the anti-fascist club? I mean, these people were caught. They're going to be prosecuted, as they should be. But there's not a website up for the sign up of anti-fascists. Is there, Tom Tiffany? If you're so concerned about the violence of extremist groups, what about the extreme right groups, Tom? And any concern there?
Well, certainly Bill Barr didn't display any concern about the far right groups, those in Michigan or otherwise. Tom, I would point out, I am now only the second most famous member of Antifa from Mount Horeb, Wisconsin.
That's right. You went to high school there, didn't you?
I'm an alum. Mount Horrible, I called it.
You're an alum of the anti-fascist group, Crudy? Because I am.
I founded it.
I am an anti-fascist. Yes, I am.
Well, not to be, hate to call Tom Tiffany a partisan, but he did invoke also not only Tim Carpenter, but also the Attorney General of the great state of Wisconsin, Josh Call, and Tony Evers, and says, why won't you find the killers of the one black Trump supporter? That guy, the one real black important guy, played for the people, Tiffany, cut 105.
So, Mr. Attorney General, I would ask Mr. Bernal Trammell, I don't know if our Attorney General Call in Wisconsin or the mayor of Milwaukee are going to pursue what appears to perhaps be a political execution. Are you familiar with that situation in Milwaukee?
You mean the shooting of that gentleman?
Yes.
I've read about it.
If the Attorney General and other law enforcement in Wisconsin do not act, will the federal government study this situation and bring justice for Mr. Trammell and his family?
Yes, we'll certainly study that situation.
I apologize. Apparently he meant Barrett, not Evers, but ultimately the Milwaukee police put out suspect photos today. It's not like they're not looking for the shooter. I mean, certainly Attorney General Josh Call didn't say, whatever you do, don't investigate the murder of the one Trump supported black guy in the state of Wisconsin.
And the fact is that he was murdered. Let's investigate. Let's bring the murderer to justice, regardless of their motivation, regardless if it was a political motivation because of being a Trump supporter or because the gentleman was a Black Lives Matter supporter. But when Congressman Tiffany gets up and says this appears to perhaps be a political murder, I mean, could you put a few more qualifiers in there, sir, if you have any proof to think that that is the case one way or the other? And again, I have to say, of all the other black men that have been killed in the city of Milwaukee, and I don't hear a peep out of these politicians, I find it lacking.
Well, one last statement from Tom Tiffany. Here's your takeaway, Dom. If you had one, the congressman, the Republican congressman, special elect from Wisconsin, Tom Tiffany. Here's your takeaway, Dom.
This is not a myth. You're hearing it from all over the country, and we're hearing all the time about Portland and Seattle. This happened in Madison, Wisconsin also, where a mayor, a far leftist mayor, proudly carries that banner, sat on a street, actually not a street, a highway with protesters and shut down traffic. And then State Street, one of the most iconic streets in the state of Wisconsin and Madison, was destroyed. And I'm not so sure that those businesses are going to get their businesses back. It is not a myth, folks. What's happening is real across our country, and we need to stop
Across is
the
a word.
riots. These are not peaceful protests. These are riots that are happening, and we need to call an end to it. And I hope you, Mr. Attorney General, will work towards that end. Thank you.
Is Tom Tiffany advocating for federal troops in Madison, perhaps? If Antifa is real and it's even here, what exactly is Tiffany advocating for?
Law and order. I'm not clear exactly what he's advocating for. Apparently for what? Federal investigations into the murder of Mr. Trammell?
I think it's above and beyond that. I think he's trying to give some cover fire to the Trump administration and this whole asinine notion, this gaslighting, Dom, when it comes to these riots on the street. No doubt there have been incidents across the country, and I would suspect they are primarily isolated incidents. But when you send the federales in, they often instigate and they blow up into bigger and bigger incidents. And Tom Tiffany, he's just there. Tom Tiffany always hated on the city of Milwaukee, always hated on the city of Madison. I mean, that is the Republican playbook in the state of Wisconsin. It's white liberals in Madison and black Democrats in Milwaukee. That's what's wrong with this world.
844-967-2789. Barr giving testimony today. A little flavor, the hometown favorite, Tom Tiffany. I believe Zunker is his opponent in this next election. Please check her out in the Northwoods of Wisconsin.
Now, Dominic, there was a differing exchange. If you noted, Tiffany did most of the talking, and
right, most of
Bill
the
Barr
ass
just
kissing, and he sat there and nodded.
Bill Barr just basked it in. But Jayapal from Michigan, Dom, right? You spent a little time in Michigan. I know you're quite proud of your Michigan roots. Well, she made note of the fact that Bill Barr didn't take any issue whatsoever when there was threatened violence against Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer, when there were open Michigan rallies. Hell, the president of the United States tweeted out what? Liberate Michigan.
There were armed protesters in the state house. with their weapons,
Well,
threatening Michigan lawmakers. Where were the feds
Apparently-
then?
That didn't come to the attention of Bill Barr.
Oh,
You know,
he's so
all very
busy.
confused.
Yeah.
Didn't see any of that. Apparently very busy washing his hair that weekend. I know it's out of order, but let's play Jayapal. If we could, Fancy Brian, play cut number 74.
Are you aware that these protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded?
No,
You're not aware of that.
I was not aware.
Major protests in Michigan. You're the attorney general, and you didn't know that the protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded. So
Well-
obviously you couldn't be concerned about that.
Well, there are a lot
You-
of protests
didn't-
around the United States.
What? Not at that point, there weren't.
I know that seems like a real disingenuous answer.
Well,
to
he's
me.
nothing but disingenuous. He's the gaslighting king. He's really, and I honestly, I do. He's good at it. He is. He's good. He's good. But if you have an attorney general of the United States that is unaware of death threats to the Michigan governor after the president tweeted out "Liberate Michigan," I mean, that was all over the place, man. You could not know that. So you're either what? Either you're being willfully ignorant or you're incompetent at your job. And you're not a dumb man. So I don't think it's the incompetent. You are being willfully ignorant. You are gaslighting this country with your testimony.
What about the Lafayette Square demonstrations, the clearing of peaceful protesters in Washington, D.C.? Jayapal, she kept after the attorney general a little more from her and the exchange. Cut number 75.
Moving 8th Street out to I Street as the perimeter was a decision made.
Sorry, I'm cutting Sicily too.
The day before. It was justified by the extreme rioting that was going on around the White House. I don't remember Captain DeMarco, who is the same Captain DeMarco who ran as a Democratic candidate.
Oh,
for
so he must
Congress in
not have any
Maryland, even
credibility
being
then.
Close to the discussions as to what was going on.
See how he dismissed that Democrat, Tom? You know, Democrats, they can't act as witnesses. One more here. Jayapal and Bill Barr, play number cut 76.
Sitting here today under penalty of perjury, do you still maintain
This is Val
that
Demings.
you stated in a February 13th interview that the president has never asked you to do anything in a criminal case? Yes or no, please?
Yeah, no, I mean, will I confirm it? Is that the
No.
question?
Or do you stand by your testimony or
He
your?
has never asked me, directed me, pressured me to do anything in a criminal case.
Now, that was Val Demings. She is the congresswoman from Florida. She's not part of the squad, but perhaps a Biden vice presidential consideration, Dom. And that might be coming down this week. Joe Biden left the bunker, gave a speech today. It kind of competed with the Bill Barr testimony. I watched the Bill Barr. I got to be honest. MSNBC kept the Bill Barr on. I
So
did catch
frustrating.
a little bit of the Joe Biden before the video link broke mid-speech.
844-967-2789. We will take some of your calls coming up next. And of course, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, going to break it down for us at the top of the hour. 844-967-2789.
The stories of the black and white have gone to gray, and you were right.
I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
Hi, this is Becky from Bounce Milwaukee. We aren't open for play right now, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy your favorite pizzas, drinks, and our famous chocolate chip cookies. We're open for carryout and delivery Wednesday through Sunday, 4 to 11 p.m. When you order, you can also add on a Pay It Forward pizza, which will help feed families in need throughout our community, as well as provide fuel for Milwaukee's social justice protesters. You can place your own order for takeout or delivery, or send a Pay It Forward pizza to the community by visiting bouncemilwaukee.com.
Vous parlez français? Oui, je parle français.
Milwaukee French Immersion School, a high-achieving French immersion program, part of Milwaukee Public Schools for over 40 years, with free tuition, citywide busing, and recognized by the French government. We are now accepting applications for K4 and K5. Learn more on the Milwaukee French Immersion website and sign up for a live virtual tour or call 414-874-8400, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Senator Ron Johnson talking about staying out of bars. How does that pair with your thought that schools should reopen in the fall? You got a room full of school students or a room full of bar patrons. What's the difference?
Because schools, students, it's rare, very rare to have them have a very serious medical effect from COVID.
The Devil's Advocates are live weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You shouldn't have older school teachers or school teachers with some of the comorbidities.
From Port Washington to Oconomowoc, WRD 1510 AM is essential radio to get you through this pandemic.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open 844-967-2789. Be patient, callers. Actually, Brian, let's do this in reverse order. I want to play some sound here. Democratic Rep David Cicilline, a Democrat from Rhode Island, got into it. The headline here at the Washington Post: Barr has to think a second before condemning foreign election interference across the board. Again, I think this was one of the highlights that I saw today. And Brian, thank you for digging this one up. If you would please play Rep Cicilline.
Here, the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee unanimously found that Russia interfered with our elections and attempted to undermine American democracy, correct?
And I said so too.
Is it ever appropriate, sir, for the president to solicit or accept foreign assistance in an election?
It depends what kind of assistance.
Is it ever appropriate for the president or presidential candidate to accept or solicit foreign assistance of any kind in his or her election?
No, it's not appropriate.
Okay, I'm glad. Sorry you had to struggle with that one, Mr. Attorney General.
I mean, you freaking kidding me? You stand up there and say the Russiagate scandal, right? Cicilline points out a unanimous decision that this occurred, this interference, this election, and you got to be asked twice as the AG of this country whether or not that's a bad thing. What else does he have to say about protesters? Let's play that one, please, Brian.
Now let's turn to the First Amendment. America, ever appropriate, Mr. Barr, for officers to use force against peaceful protesters? Yes or no?
Not against peaceful protesters.
So you also don't mention in your statement today or your testimony that federal officers have even tear-gassed elected representatives. County Commissioner Sharon Myron confirmed firsthand, last night I was tear-gassed by a federal occupying force. I saw throw canisters of poison without warning into a nonviolent crowd, including elders and the vulnerable. And on July 23rd, the mayor, Ted Wheeler, was tear-gassed. He called the tactics of the officers abhorrent. These are elected representatives with grave concerns that officers are using abhorrent tactics, including tear-gassing elderly, nonviolent Americans. So let me ask you, sir, do you think it's ever appropriate to use tear gas on peaceful protesters? Yes or no?
Well, the problem in these things sometimes occur because it's hard to separate people who
Mr. Barr, my question is very specific. Do you think it is ever appropriate to use tear gas on peaceful protesters?
It is,
yes or no?
It is appropriate to use tear gas when it's indicated to disperse
on peaceful protesters,
disperse an unlawful assembly, and sometimes, unfortunately, peaceful protesters are affected by.
Okay, now
sure, tear gas him is basically what he said.
An unlawful assembly,
we want you out of the way, and we're going to use some tear gas. We don't give a damn if you're being peaceful. You're unlawfully assembled.
We declare you to be unlawful. I mean, didn't we live through something like this not so many years ago, Crudy? We've declared this to be an unlawful assembly. You have to leave. I mean, what is
The
that?
conduct is your attendance. Constitution be damned.
844-967-2789. The fact that the Attorney General of the United States cannot say emphatically, without pause or reservation, that it is wrong to tear gas peaceful protesters just goes to show you how far this country has fallen.
So what's his excuse precisely? Collateral damage? You know, if a few good peaceful protesters have to go down because, you know, I don't like the rest of you. That's just collateral damage, I guess. That's all good.
844-967-2789. Frank from...
Or at least can be rationalized in testimony on the Hill.
Well, they can rationalize anything. Anything's possible, Mike. Hey, Frank, welcome. Happy Tuesday. What do you got for us?
Happy Tuesday to you. Of course, Barr didn't see the Michigan protesters. He had his head buried up Trump's rear end. As far as Tiffany, there's another clown called Jim Jordan from Ohio. He was a wrestling coach when I lived in Columbus area in the 90s. Remember Dr. Nasser from Michigan State?
Yes.
Nasser, yes.
Terrible.
Well, they had their own pedophile doctor called Dr. Strauss, except for instead of teenage girls and young women, he liked teenage boys and young men. And that jackass heard about it plenty of times, but he claims he didn't know. He must have gave some of his brilliance off to Tom Tiffany. And tell idiot Tiffany, when is he going to resign? He keeps telling Evers and Palm to resign. He should resign, and Trump should be impeached again. Also tell that idiot Barr that he committed perjury under oath. Biden will be our president, whether he likes it or not. And that's a felony that they can, it's only like 6 months away. So he better watch himself.
Amen, Frank. Thanks for the call, man. Always appreciate your take, and we like all of your takes at 844-967-2789. Well, most of them. You know who you are. Bill Barr.
What about Nadler? You talked about getting to the
we got a couple minutes here. Let's jam out some Nadler, if you would please. Fancy Brian, roll with cut 31.
Your tenure has been marked by a persistent war against the department's professional corps in an apparent attempt to secure favors for the president. Others have lost sight of the importance of civil rights laws. But now we see the full force of the federal government brought to bear against citizens demonstrating for the advancement of their own civil rights.
Let's keep
it
going.
rolling.
And although responsibility for the government's failure to protect the health, safety, and constitutional rights of the American people belongs squarely to President Trump, he could not have done this alone. He needed help. And after he finished utterly humiliating his first attorney general, he found you. In your time at the department, you have aided and abetted the worst failings of the president.
Ooh, maybe squeeze one more in, please, Brian.
There is no precedent for the Department of Justice to actively seek out conflict with American citizens under such flimsy pretext or for such petty purposes.
Aided and abetted. Barr, the independent attorney general of the state of Wisconsin. Also, I would say aided and abetted by the Republican Senate as well. This is on them as much as anybody else.
No, Barr's the U.S. Attorney General. A.G. Call is the one that Tom Tiffany is calling for the resignation of because he's not doing enough to stem the Antifa, the social workers from Mount Horeb.
So if you're not Antifa, if you're not anti-fascist, does that make you pro-fascist, Tom Tiffany?
It's an interesting conundrum. I don't think Tiffany would be able to answer that question. I think he would get a little flummoxed like Bill Barr did. Yes, no, maybe. Come back with us. A fine guest. I feel quite confident. James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney. Hour 2 is next. More Devil's Advocates. You're going to want to stick around.
One more piece.
Russia, if you're listening?
Well, history is written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
I know nothing about Russia.
We know small businesses are navigating uncharted waters right now due to the lasting effects of COVID-19 and social unrest. As an independent radio network, we want to support our community. So Talk 1017 FM is announcing Pay It Forward grants to provide advertising to small businesses and help them get back on their feet. To nominate your small business for a Pay It Forward grant with Talk 1017 FM, give us a call at 608-819-8255 or go to talk1017fm.com. Let's get through this, everyone.
MaxInc Radio, this is Rocker. Hey, Crudy, what? I know nothing about any of my operatives trying to steal your precious vaccine for the double dip. Jimmy, was that you?
Did Jimmy get his fingers on the vaccine? Will Rocker be able to refill the sanitizer without touching the sanitizer? Tune in to MaxInc Radio this Saturday and Sunday from 6 to 9 p.m.
Rocker, even a mask will protect you from double dipping.
You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Hijacking protests, picking a beep. I'm Jan Johnson. On Capitol Hill, Attorney General Bill Barr today told the House Judiciary Committee protests are all American, but the violence that's erupted in Portland has been worthy of an intervention by federal officers.
The particular violent opportunists that are involved here get into those crowds and then start engaging in very violent activity and hijack it.
In Portland, Mayor Ted Wheeler is calling for an immediate meeting with the acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. Correspondent Jim Roop has that.
Wheeler and City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty want to talk with Wolf to try and negotiate a ceasefire and a withdrawal of federal officers from downtown Portland. Officers with the Federal Protective Services were sent to Portland by President Trump to guard federal buildings. But since then, there have been nightly violent and damaging clashes between protesters and the officers. And as Wheeler and Hardesty say they want to negotiate a withdrawal, President Trump says he may send even more officers.
Joe Biden proposed a new program today that he says will curb systemic racism in the economy. The presumptive Democratic nominee also says he's getting closer to a running mate pick.
I'm going to have a choice in the first week in August, and I promise I'll let you know when I do.
A coronavirus outbreak involving at least 15 players and staff of the Miami Marlins means more game cancellations, as our Clayton Neville tells us.
Major League Baseball says all Marlins games through Sunday have been postponed, meaning the team can't play again until at least Monday of next week. The league also postponing the Phillies and Yankees home-and-home series out of precaution. The Marlins' last game was against Philadelphia. League officials say they continue to bolster protocols and make any necessary adjustments.
South Carolina's biggest school district says nearly 1/3 of the students don't plan to attend school in person this fall and will choose a virtual program instead. I'm Jan Johnson.
For a democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary-Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit TeamstersLocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
Don't send in those absentee ballots just yet. Talk 1017 FM is broadcasting forums for you to hear about candidates running to represent Milwaukee. Thursday, August 6th, meet the candidates running to represent Assembly District 17, previously held by Representative David Crowley. Tune in Friday, August 7th, to hear the candidates running for the 8th Assembly District, Representative Jocasta Zamaripa's previous seat. Both nights, the forums will be broadcasted from 7 to 8 p.m., exclusively on Talk 1017 FM, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Aides say President Trump is still working to unwind the Dreamers program.
The president has been using the Supreme Court ruling to not end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program.
Hello, Jim Santelle.
Brian,
how are you?
Has assigned that executive orders.
I'm glorious. How do you feel?
I'm doing just great. Sunny day today, and all is perfect in the world, right?
Everything seems normal, and I feel like we're all going to get justice.
1 year instead of 2, and no new applications for the program, which protects persons brought into the U.S. illegally as children from deportation. For 2.5 years, President Trump has been trying to end DACA, hoping Democrats would agree to a compromise by spending more money on a border wall. Bob Costantini, Washington.
The American Federation of Teachers says it will back strikes if teachers are put at risk of coronavirus. The union says schools should open only in places where infections are low and safety measures are in place. I'm Jan Johnson.
Milwaukee, join me, Alan Robinson, Wednesday evenings for my new show, Wiz Cannabis Radio. We're setting the record straight on cannabis in Wisconsin. Follow me at Wisco Cannabis and listen live Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. right here on Talk 1017 FM.
Hey guys, I'm Maggie Dawn, your lady lawyer, legal eagle, and sensei of economics. Tune into my show, Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 on WRRD 1510 AM. Always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
The Devil's Advocates are live weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You guys are getting it done.
You boys are the light of my day, and I've been listening to you for many years.
I love you guys. You're the greatest thing that has happened to Wisconsin radio.
Was it for your radio program and getting out the vote? Who knows?
I got to give you guys so many props. I'm pretty sure your guys' radio station had a direct impact on that.
You're welcome, everybody, and thank you.
For 1017 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Keith Gosted with your headlines. 3 Wisconsin police departments are withdrawing from agreements to send officers to the scaled-back DNC next month. The reason appears to be the directive from the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission given to Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales to discontinue the use of tear gas and pepper spray. The police chiefs of Fond du Lac, Franklin, and West Dallas have all expressed concern for their officers' safety should protests turn violent. Waukesha's police chief, who was hired after 29 years with the Milwaukee Police Department, is consulting with an attorney to withdraw from the agreement as well. The Milwaukee Police Department has declined to comment on staffing for its operational plan. You are listening to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. The day Bill Barr went to the Hill. And we welcome back a fine guest, former U.S. Attorney Gene Santelle. He's a friend of ours. Jim, welcome back to the big show.
Mike and Dom, good to be with you once again on yet another important day on Capitol Hill and for the entire nation.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, do you know what yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of?
I do not. So like me.
We got the sound.
Oh, play it for the people, Fancy Brian, and most importantly for our fine guest, Jim Santelle. Yesterday, the 4-year anniversary of this statement by candidate Donald Trump.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Now, how we missed that yesterday, I'll never know. Apparently.
and I missed it again, both mathematically and historically. But again, an important segue into at least some of the Attorney General's testimony today, which did visit a little bit on the Mueller report and many other issues as well.
Now, the Mueller report, the opening statement, I didn't hear him deliver the opening statement, but I did read it. And he effectively dismissed the Russia hoax, right? is partisanship. And the fact that he's trying to get to the bottom of it just proves how partisan those Democrats might be, Jim.
Right. And I think today one of the big takeaways from this, not only with respect to the Attorney General's prepared remarks, but also his responses to questions over the period of several hours, is, again, as many people have said, that partisan nature of what he has done with respect to the Department of Justice. And one of the big concerns that I have as I listen to this Attorney General, yes, my Attorney General, our Attorney General, is the failure to acknowledge that even if you have some explanations for what you have done with respect to misrepresenting the Mueller report, the prosecutions of Mike Flynn and Roger Stone, frankly, Operation Legend with Lafayette Park and Portland, other places, there's no acknowledgement whatsoever that the American people looking at these kinds of things would perceive some inappropriate conduct. And the fact that the Attorney General does not even acknowledge that there are gray areas in the world, that he does in fact need to explain why it is these things are happening in America, that his perceptions are not necessarily those of at least a significant number of Americans today, the fact that he doesn't acknowledge that it's good to have doubt and some humility about these things is the big, broad takeaway that I see as I look at this Attorney General today. And that is a huge problem, not only with respect to the specific things he talked about today, including the Mueller report, but who it is who's in charge of the U.S. Department of Justice today in the United States of America.
Well, here's one pregnant pause when Bill Barr was questioned. I believe Don played the sound. Cicilline, the congressman from Rhode Island, asked him specifically about foreign interference in elections. And would it be appropriate for a U.S. president to seek that foreign interference? And of course, we know after, quote unquote, the impeachment acquittal, Trump went out and did it again, Jim. And there was a big pregnant pause before Barr could answer that question.
Absolutely. And when he did answer it, again, this does get into the weeds, which also, and frankly, I think this particular issue, Mike and Dom, this is the one, if you don't take my universal takeaway from who it is our Attorney General is, I think this is the headline right here, that the chief federal law enforcement officer of the United States of America today said, in response to a specific question, is it ever appropriate for a president to accept any sorts of support or assistance from a foreign government or foreign entity in connection with, and frankly, in anything, but in connection with an election? First, he paused, and then he said, it depends on what kind of assistance you're talking about. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And then he probably realized, oh yes, indeed, I do need to go back and fix that. And he tried to do that. But again, in connection with your pregnant pauses, there were at least two there. And that remains, again, I think that's the New York Times headline tonight, tomorrow. It depends on what kind of assistance you are talking about. No, Mr. Attorney General, with due respect, it does not depend on that. There's a federal law. There's a federal criminal law that prohibits that. And if you engage in that kind of activity, you should be subject to penalties under that statute. And I don't expect you to know everything in the criminal code. None of us does. But that one is especially important given the history of this presidency. And the fact that this Attorney General would say it depends on what kind of assistance a foreign government might give to a president in connection with a pending campaign and election, that is shocking and stunning. Now, he does go back and try to take that back in because he is bright enough to figure out that is not a good thing to say, but it does give, again, some sense of his mindset.
If I may, though, Jim, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, joining us, talking about the Barr testimony today. Cicilline had to re-ask the question. Barr on his own did not come to the conclusion that this was, something that is a problem. He had to be prodded again. So I'm not clear if he just thought he could give that meandering kind of pass by, depends on what kind of assistance answer, if that would just, be let go. But Cicilline had to come back and clarify. I got to be honest, man, Barr's not making you U.S. attorneys look pretty good these days, man. It's a tough line to toe.
Right, exactly. And again, Cicilline was frankly, I think was incredulous. He wasn't certain what he had heard. And here's where I'll get into a little bit of commentary that I make about the entire hearing, which we've talked about before. Sometimes you just let that pregnant pause sit there, and maybe you don't ask the correcting question. Because if he hadn't, and given the Attorney General that opportunity to think about it, the record would have been clear that that's what this Attorney General really does think. He gave him the benefit of the doubt, say, wait, do you really believe that? And then those synapses began to fire inside of Bill Brain's brain, and he said, oh yes, I guess I don't. But again, the fact that we are even having not an argument, but even some superficial discussion about what the answer to that question should be, that is stunning to me. And that should be stunning to every American.
It depends on what kind of assistance, Jim. I believe his honest answer, what he truly believes, at least as it comes to his job serving this president, not serving the American people. I think his first answer is what he truly believes. Depends if we can get away with it, Jim. What about Rep. Jayapal? I got to throw this one out there as well. From Michigan, throwing out, the governor there had threats against her life. She should be shot. She should be lynched. Armed protesters in the Capitol. And he knew nothing about that, Jim. Do you believe that Barr was unaware of the threats against a sitting governor's life?
There are two possibilities. Number one, they're both condemning. If he did not know about that, that is a huge default, once again, inside the U.S. Department of Justice on 9th and Constitution there. If he did, then he's being disingenuous today. But putting aside what he did or did not know, again, what should the appropriate answer be? The appropriate answer from this attorney general, from any attorney general in any administration, should be, we condemn that kind of behavior. A Capitol building, a legislative house, a place of executive function, a place of judicial function should be a place where you go safely and securely to petition your government, to engage in governmental operations. And once again, the fact that he says, I don't know about that, is, again, I use the words, they're stunning. It is not just stunning, however, it is also revelatory of what this attorney general is all about. It is pretty difficult for me to believe that he did not have some sense of that conduct. I think probably out of the 330 million Americans will carve away some of the young people and say probably half of America knows about that story.
And one,
Jim, I got to interrupt here
just
for a moment. How can we explain the differential treatment for a federal courthouse in Portland and the state capitol in Michigan? Why is one worthy of defense and the other one, stormed the Bastille?
You can't. And that's once again where I go to this notion that, part of it is defending, obviously, your inconsistencies, so he's in a tough spot, right? But again, it would be, how refreshing it would be if this attorney general, or frankly, virtually every other cabinet member appearing before Congress, were to say today in response to your very good question, Mike Crute, you know what, Mr. Crute, you're right. There is an inconsistency. I wish I had done something different. I wish my staff had come to me and told me about, what's going on there if I didn't know about it. I wish I'd responded in a better way, acknowledging once again that you're not perfect, that there is some doubt, there's some inconsistency, maybe some gray lines from time to time, and that I wish I had done it better. Wouldn't that be a tremendously satisfying, almost even professionally endearing response? Instead, he doesn't do that. And he just hosed this line of, I am right, and admits of no possibility of some gray areas and some, I don't want to say wiggle room in some of these things, because that sends a message that's not legitimate, but no sense whatsoever that credible people have different responses than he does. And he just acknowledges that. But again, the inconsistencies there are telling. And that's, again, the broad picture of the Bill Barr that we saw today.
Jim, Bill Barr's response to the question, should the federal government be gassing peaceful protesters? Another question, he could not just come out and say, no, absolutely not. We cannot do that. We would not do that. Talk about the actions of a strong man in the minute we got left in this segment, Jim. It seems to be another example, but what's your take?
Sure. Once again, great question. Underscores what we've been talking about. Let's talk about Lafayette Park. We could talk about Portland as well, but Lafayette Park. Again, I fault the Democrats a bit here as well for not asking some specific questions that should have been pursued in respect to that and other areas. But again, to your point, Dom, the answer is no, that shouldn't happen. We support the First Amendment, period. People have a right to petition their government, period. And I am so very sorry, he should have said, that happened, that people were endangered, that we had this impact. I wish I could do that again. That should have been response from. That's what Janet Reno responded. That's how Eric Holder responds to these things. That's how other Republican attorneys general have responded. In times when there are these inconsistencies, America needs to hear that. We didn't hear that again today.
Jim, I thought the Democrats did better than expectations, at least relative to, let's say, prior impeachment hearings and things of that nature. But you're right. I don't think they pinned them down on all the points of order that they could have, and, eventually held him accountable for perhaps his perjurous answers. Come back with us. A fine guest indeed, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, more devil's advocates.
Russia, if you're listening.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary-Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
This is Michael Johnson, president of Boys and Girls Club. We are proposing to the state legislature to add a new statue of Bill Phillips to the state capitol. Bill was the first African-American to be elected to a statewide office, the first judge, and the first alderwoman. The time is now, and it's unfortunate that in 2020, there's not one piece of art representing and celebrating the life and legacy of African-Americans in Wisconsin. Please contact your state representative and ask for their full support.
Do you need a better resume to help you find a new job? Or are you looking to polish your resume for that next move up? COVID-19 has made the job search landscape much more competitive. I'm Linda, a certified resume writer at Aberlin Resume and Career Services, LLC, and I can help you with this. Call me at 414-412-6072. Until August 30th, we're giving a 10% discount to anyone who permanently lost their job due to COVID-19. Even you, Scott Walker.
Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin. The Roman Coin features weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, pinball, a pool table, a jukebox, and a great selection of craft beers. The Roman Coin is also pet-friendly to appeal to the canine crowd, and you can order it from several nearby restaurants. Regano's Roman Coin, 1004 East Brady Street on Milwaukee's east side.
From Bernie to Biden to Trump supporters, Talk 1017 FM has the political fix for every Wisconsinite, always streaming Essential Radio at talk1017fm.com.
When they go low, we get high. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you miss any of this fine program, please go online to domandkrut.com. You can listen to and download podcasts and interviews.
Dominic, we've got a fine guest. He's generously stuck around. He is James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, a friend of ours. Jim, I got to ask you about Operation Legend. This is the escalation in Portland, the federal agents there. But apparently, as part of Operation Legend, we can also expect some sort of federal agents in our backyard in Milwaukee. Jim, my understanding is these will not be the same sort of DHS agents that have been assigned to Portland, but want to get your first take, your gut reaction. Federal agents in town, this is just to stir mischief for the DNC. At least that's my opinion. What's yours, Counselor?
Yeah, I have some great concerns about this as well. And although I don't normally respond to your questions about speculation, I'm going to go down this road right now and interpret your question as being asking for some speculation about what happened here. We know about Operation Legend. And again, I think we missed some opportunities today on Capitol Hill to ask this Attorney General with great particularity. Who are those people? Why are they in camouflage? Why are they in war equipment on the streets of America? Who are they? Who's designated to supervise them? What is their mission? All those things I wasn't hearing today. Putting that to one side, the other part of this is just that, which is, I think what happened here is that Donald Trump last Wednesday said, yes, Portland is going to be the focus of this, and then throws out some additional cities where he's heard about things. Chicago, maybe Baltimore, Detroit, Milwaukee. And my guess is that nobody in Milwaukee, nobody in the U.S. Attorney's Office, my guess is nobody down the street at 9th and Constitution and Main Justice knows anything about this. And so we're scrambling then for the next 2 to 3 days to figure out whether the same Operation Legend that has that kind of forceful movement is coming to Milwaukee or Chicago. And Lori Lightfoot, as she is saying, not in our city. And my strong guess is that the response given by the government, including our local U.S. Attorney's Office, which is this is very different, is not, frankly, a planned. This is not a part of an operation that has been thought through. Instead, it's a response to the president's putting Milwaukee out there without there being any there. If in fact you're going to send more agents to Milwaukee, as the U.S. Attorney has said, to support specific initiatives, you can do that with an announcement of ATF standing next to you, by the local sheriff's department, by the police department. In fact, what do we know that happened last week? All of our local law enforcement, our state law enforcement said, at least we know nothing about this and we don't want the federal government there. That's a sign that you haven't worked through this at all. And my guess is that right now, promised 2 weeks down the road, we're going to find out what Operation Legend, an entirely different thing, maybe should be renamed for Milwaukee. We're going to find out what that means. My strong criticism of the U.S. Department of Justice right here in Eastern Wisconsin is that this has not been put together. Nothing wrong again with bringing in agents who are going to address criminal issues. But if we're going to import Operation Legend, the Portland experience into Milwaukee, we're hearing 2 completely different kinds of things, again, suggesting to me the president put in order and put in motion a number of things that nobody anticipated. We're now trying to figure out what that means. I am hopeful that if in fact there are allocations, which could be very good of analysts and other people, special agent investigators to work on these things, that can be done, but done thoughtfully in cooperation with local and state law enforcement. And they're not on the streets in front of the federal courthouse on 517 East Wisconsin Avenue or in Green Bay and other places like Operation Legend is in Portland today.
Now, Dominic perhaps taunted the Milwaukee County District Attorney into making a declarative statement that if there is laws broken, if there are peaceful suspects being captured by federal authorities, that he will prosecute them. Jim, confrontations between local law enforcement and perhaps federales, does this seem like a plausible circumstance to you, sir?
It is, again, I use the word stunning a lot today. I worked for the United States Department of Justice for 30 years, 6.5 of those as U.S. Attorney. I'm not saying we haven't had internal disputes from time to time, but I mean inside the law enforcement community, inside our family. We sit down, and John Chisholm and I have discussions from time to time, absolutely, with the state attorney general, regardless of party, regardless of background. Of course we do, and we make decisions about who is going to prosecute where. Sometimes we disagree about how things should happen, and then we come together and put this forward so that the public knows that law enforcement is united. And that's what in the hallmark of law enforcement, frankly, in Wisconsin and throughout the Eastern District in particular, southeastern Wisconsin. This is, again, amazing to me that we are even talking about the prospect of one law enforcement, legitimate, sworn to uphold the law, apprehending and stopping another form of law enforcement. And again, I go back to this issue, which I think is superficial, but it really does capsulate everything. Camouflage. Why are those people in Portland in camouflage? It means that we're doing something other than legitimate law enforcement. And now we are, in fact, opening up that possibility that in a domestic setting, not in a war, not overseas, but on the streets of America, our own enforcement sworn to keep us safe and secure is going to be addressing, to put it very mildly, if not downright being opposition to other law enforcement. This is not what America expects. This is not what America has ever been. And again, put in motion by, I would say, this Attorney General, by this president.
Jim, last 60 seconds, I can give you 30. How do we find out who these people are, and how do we find out where they came from and what their mission is?
Sure. Again, missed opportunity today, right? Dom, those questions should have been asked. Mr. Attorney General, who's supervising them? How many? What agencies? What is their mission? Give me their commission statement. Tell me who they are, maybe not by name. What is their, what kind of firepower do they have? And the fact that we don't have that information today, oversight, a lost opportunity today, not only in Portland, but otherwise. Beyond that, the media continues to pursue this, and Freedom of Information Act requests. Those kinds of things, your government should be able to provide that. approaching the Department of Justice, asking those questions, even if members of Congress fail to do so today.
Jim Santelle, you are definitely invited to hang out with us during the DNC because we might need counsel nearby. Appreciate you joining us here on the air today. Thanks, Jim.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Jim.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Number 9. We may need counsel.
Russia, if you're listening.
Hey, you want to get high, man?
Wash your hands, avoid sick people, and touching your face. There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
We know small businesses are navigating uncharted waters right now due to the lasting effects of COVID-19 and social unrest. As an independent radio network, we want to support our community. So Talk 1017 FM is announcing paid forward grants to provide advertising to small businesses and help them get back on their feet. To nominate your small business for a pay it forward grant with Talk 1017 FM, give us a call at 608-819-8255 or go to talk1017fm.com. Let's get through this, everyone.
MaxInc Radio, this is Rocker. Hey, Crudy, what? I know nothing about any of my operatives trying to steal your precious vaccine for the double dip. Jimmy, was that you?
Did Jimmy get his fingers on the vaccine? Will Rocker be able to get out of the bathroom without touching the door handle? Tune in to MaxInc Radio this Saturday and Sunday from 6 to 9 p.m.
Rocker, even a mask will protect you from double dipping.
Hi, I'm Tom Newhouse, the Piano Man, and I want everyone to stay safe during this darn COVID-19 pandemic. At Newhouse Pianos, we adhere to COVID safety procedures. So Google Pianos Milwaukee and click on newhousepianoworkshop.com to check out my current inventory of reconditioned pianos and rebuilding services. Call or text me at 262-302-1965 to schedule an appointment with me, Tom Newhouse, the Piano Man.
Hi, this is Becky from Bounce Milwaukee in Bayview. While we aren't open for drop-in play due to coronavirus, we invite you to join us every weekend for our parking lot carpool cinema. 2 movies every Friday and Saturday night at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. Your car, our lot. Our full food and drink menu is available while you watch. For more information or to reserve your spot, visit bouncemilwaukee.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Santita Jackson of the Santita Jackson Show. Every Thursday morning at 7 o'clock, say hello somebody and join Sanders campaign co-chair, former state senator Nina Turner on the Santita Jackson Show on 1017 FM.
Stay informed with progressive news and talk on Talk 1017 FM, Milwaukee's choice for essential radio.
For 1017 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Keith Gosted with your headlines. Milwaukee's 5th District Alderwoman Nakia Dodd says the protest parties outside the home of Milwaukee Police Chief Morales have become lawless. The parties started last Wednesday and have featured music, dancing, grilling, and cornhole. Dodd says she is concerned emergency vehicles might not be able to get through and says she has seen protest party attendees grilling food in the street and openly smoking marijuana. Highs today in the mid-80s with partly cloudy skies. Overnight chance of scattered thunderstorms with highs in the mid-upper 60s. Wednesday, highs in the mid-80s with partly cloudy skies. Thursday, high of 77 anticipated in Milwaukee with partly cloudy skies. High of 81 for Madison with partly cloudy skies. You are listening to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I want to thank our most recent guest, the fine one, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, a friend of ours. And he was a little more animated than some
He's
days.
fired up, man. I mean, he was a while ago, some time ago, Jim would speak highly of Mr. Barr. And I think those days are long gone.
But we all have regrets in 2020 hindsight, do we not, Tom?
It is 2020. Sure, yeah, perhaps we do, unless you're Bill Barr, unless you're Donald Trump. And I think to get to that issue that Jim brought up, where's the humility, the reflection? There is none. Because the cult leader does not think that those emotions are valuable. Those are signs of weakness. If you admit wrongdoing, if you admit that perhaps you could have taken another approach, if you have any sort of regrets, if you verbalize those, you are showing weakness. And that is a no-no for this president and this administration. So we get the gaslighting that we get from the attorney general.
Setting aside the treatment of Paul Manafort was released from federal custody despite the fact he did not meet the criterion for the coronavirus protocol, but thousands of other federal inmates did, and Bill Barr's commission apparently heard like 7 requests and then denied them all. But Manafort got his, and Michael Cohen got one until he crossed the line, and they wanted to put a gag order on him. Couldn't write any bad books about the president, right?
No books. That's right.
The most troubling thing to me, other than the fact that this pompous, condescending ass is just difficult to listen to, but what's being said, effectively, any right-wing activity, any extremist group, the Open Wisconsin rally that I attended, Dom, well, that seemed like a much more dangerous scenario to me than the Black Lives Matter protest I was at the very day when the Antifa activity happened on State Street. I was at that protest that day. It was peaceful. It was in the bright sunshine. I mean, hell, even the quote unquote looting happened at like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. And obviously some things got out of hand. But I would point out outside instigators, in many cases, infiltrated the crowds. And we've talked about that. And the Star Tribune out of Minneapolis is reporting the Umbrella Man, the guy that was breaking the windows that instigated so much of the violence up there. Well, it turns out he might be a white supremacist Hell's Angel. Just a brief read. You posted this one at our Facebook page, Tom. Police have also connected the 32-year-old man to a widely publicized incident in Stillwater late last month in which a Muslim woman was confronted by a group of men wearing white supremacist garb. Same guy, apparently. Rider set fire to the AutoZone near Lake Street and 27th Avenue on May 27th. The man has so far not been charged with a crime, which is why the Star Tribune is not naming him. But they have pointed out his white supremacist affiliations, Dom, and the fact that he is probably a member of the Hells Angels motorcycle club. Instigation. And Bill Barr today, didn't even know what's going on in Michigan.
I know nothing.
When armed people effectively broke into the Michigan Capitol and threatened, got right in even the security guard's face, screaming at them. Well, here in the state of Wisconsin, they didn't break in per se, although many of them thought about it because they weren't allowing access for restroom use. But the Open Wisconsin rally, Dom, I counted no less than 15 or 20 people strapped with AR-15s. And I didn't see a single strapped individual at the Black Lives Matter rally that day in downtown Madison. Now, it did get out of hand later with the looting, but it wasn't tied to the Black Lives Matter protest. They were separate actions. And I would suggest the video I've seen, you got instigators on the streets that weren't really the Black Lives Matter people.
Right. And that's purposeful, right? When you have a white supremacist going around, and I remember when Umbrella Man came around and people approached him, because obviously if you're in a peaceful protest, you don't want instigators around, because that, of course, is going to make it look bad for your organization and your message. Logically so. I get that. And that is the very reason why instigators will come on there and own and or be sent by others. And, if there's more than one, it is now a conspiracy to make it more difficult for the peaceful protesters to engage in their lawful assembly and address their government for their redress of grievances. And when that video came out, and he was very specific with like a ball peen hammer going around breaking the windows, dressed all in black, and he was confronted by some real protesters, and eventually looks like he ran away or shooed away from the area. And not all, many of the thoughts at the time on the social media I was watching, who's this? This is a setup. Is he a cop? Who is this guy? Why is this happening? Who's doing that? He's not part of the group. And to have it come out now being reported at the in Minneapolis that this guy's a white supremacist who's involved in other issues. My question is, if you know that, I hope they're biding their time and collecting their evidence, because that is literally inciting a riot on purpose to bring that kind of heat down on the BLM movement.
My understanding, Dom, I thought it was reported elsewhere that they had served affidavits. They effectively have served a search warrant on the suspect, but have not yet arrested him.
All in due time.
Let's talk about these two women in Madison. A strange story, I got to admit, Dom. The accosters of Senator Tim Carpenter. Again, the headline: 2 women arrested in the beating of State Senator Tim Carpenter during night of protest in Madison. And I would point out, Dom, not that it's very relevant, but just in the theme, neither one of these women are people of color. These are 2 white women. Madison, police arrested 2 women Monday accused of beating a state senator as he tried to take video of a crowd that had torn down statues during a protest over racial injustice. People in the crowd attacked State Senator Tim Carpenter. We talked about that. They kicked and punched Carpenter in the head, and he later required surgery. But these people that were arrested, Dom, these are the things that just make me scratch my head and say, like
things that make you go,
Yeah, who is it?
CNC Music Factory, something like that. Yeah.
No, I was talking about the host, dated Paula Abdul, had the late night show.
Arsenio.
Yes, Arsenio Hall. Thank you.
Oh.
Woof, 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 woof. But anyways, police arrested Samantha R. Hammer, 26, and she apparently is the school social worker out in Mount Horeb. And Corita E. O'Reilly, 33, on suspicion of being parties to the crimes of substantial battery and robbery with use of force. As mentioned here in the article, Dom, they're both in custody as of Monday night. The attacks occurred on a chaotic night in Madison in which a Molotov cocktail was hurled into a government office and 2 statues on the Capitol grounds were torn down. Well, if you didn't know, Tom Tiffany told you about it during the Bill Barr hearing today. One was of Colonel Christian Haig, an abolitionist. We talked about that. The other, the statue after the state's motto, forward. At one point in the night, Carpenter came upon the crowd and began filming. People in the crowd rushed him and knocked his phone out of his hand. He fell to the ground where he was punched, and about 10 people hit and kicked him. One witness told police. Stunned, Carpenter told him he was an ally and had long fought for the kind of policies they were seeking. As mentioned, paramedics treated him on scene. He did not go to the hospital, but later had surgery for his injuries, Tom. But if you've got a day job, I mean, seriously, if you're a school social worker, and I get it. I mean, I'm down for the cause, Dom, but that's a whole different level of being down for the cause. Punching someone, accosting someone because they might video a criminal act. And I get it, man. I'm not too shook up over the fact that a couple of statues got torn down, Dom. You know, I've done worse criminal damage in my life. Hell, I've been charged with it. But I never felt the need to go beat a guy up because he might be videotaping me. That seems extreme. And I can't imagine how these otherwise professional people thought that this was appropriate behavior. How they got to the point where at midnight they accosted, and maybe they didn't know Tim was a state senator, how the guy was there in shorts and a t-shirt.
Well, it doesn't matter who the guy is.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That part's right. But how did that become an acceptable part? And I would point out, again, these are not.
It's the Antifa indoctrination, man. You know, it's part of the Saul Alinsky crowd. It's the Marxists. It's the socialists. I mean, hell, she's a social worker. It's got it in her name.
Well, and the fact that she's attached to the schools in some way, shape, or form, Dom, it's clearly
yes.
lefty indoctrination through the educational system. You know, the very same schools that won't reopen despite Trump's desire that they reopen, you know, the whole economy.
Well, listen, I mean, obviously the concern about mob rules, right? You know, you get into a situation, emotions get, you know, the crowd has a life of its own. Sometimes it seems in those scenarios. So, I don't know these women. I don't know their backgrounds. Obviously, we'll find those things out. What they did do was attack someone, and you can't attack somebody. I mean, you can't just be attacking somebody on the street for taking pictures on the street. And that goes for protesters, and that goes for federal troops. I mean, where in this country has it become acceptable for that to happen? Now, you could say, well, hell, maybe they were just looking at what the feds are doing, thought they'd, you know, get theirs in, because that's what the feds are doing. You had the Attorney General today lamenting the fact that, well, you know, if it's an unlawful assembly, even though they're peaceful, hell, maybe we can gas them anyway.
Dominic, I don't know if you were aware of this form of protest, but Milwaukee alderwoman, this one from the Journal-Sentinel, wants protest parties outside police chief's home to end, but not all neighbors say they're a problem. Dominic, I was unaware of this till I read this at the Journal-Sentinel. For several days, protesters have staged protest parties outside the home of police chief Alfonso Morales, complete with music, dancing, grilling, even cornhole. Well, then you know it's a party, Dom.
Right on.
The protesters say they're bringing the fight against racism to the front doors, but alderperson Nakia Dodd, who represents the 5th District, where Morales lives, said the protests are a nuisance and a threat to public safety that must be addressed immediately. Morales has been under scrutiny by the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission recently, with some speculating his job could be in jeopardy. He faced criticism in recent months from other city officials on issues ranging from the department's use of tear gas to the discipline of an off-duty officer charged with homicide. The party protest outside Morales' home began last Wednesday, organized on Facebook. Protesters arrived outside Morales' house with loudspeaker systems, food and refreshments. Off and on, they chanted, "You about to lose your job." Dodd said earlier protests outside the homes of Barrett and other officials were peaceful, but the protests outside of Morales' house have become lawless. The party protests clog residential streets and could potentially block emergency vehicles, Dodd said. She added that some participants have been seen smoking the marijuana cigarettes and grilling food in the street. What's the worst crime there?
Wow.
Dodd called on Barrett and the city attorney to find a legal remedy and developed an enforcement strategy to address the disruptive behavior and traffic issues. Here's a quote: "Exercising one's First Amendment right is protected and critical, but do protests featuring illegal activities, smoking the weed, trump the quiet enjoyment of one's home and neighborhood?" Dodd asked in a statement Monday evening. Now, Dom, they've been protesting outside the district attorney's house. Ishmael Ozan had a couple of late night parties, if you will, protests
in Dane County. Yeah.
Outside of Ish's house. He didn't take kindly to it. Apparently, his family home, they didn't want to stay up all night hearing people chant.
You know, instead of complaining about
attorney.
the protesters, maybe Ozan and maybe the chief here in Milwaukee should address the problems that they're bringing up. 844-967-2789. We'll get to your calls next.
Say, man, you got a joint? It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 1017 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Stephanie Miller Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's the Earl Ingram Show. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Wiz Cannabis Radio, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at talk1017fm.com.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services. Get your message out. Join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com. All right, well, what does your church tell you about when people say that they're the second coming of God? My reason tells me the man is certifiable. I want your opinion, Gary.
I would say anybody who comes back and says that, I would say you'd be the Antichrist.
I am the chosen one.
So Trump is the Antichrist then, Gary, by that logic?
I'm not saying he is, but
he said he's the chosen one.
I am the chosen one.
Gary, by your biblical logic, Donald Trump is the Antichrist.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
When it comes to politics, people come to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network, 1017 Milwaukee and 927 Madison.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
Things that make you go,
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. Give us a call on things that make you go, 844-967-2789.
It's a political protest party damn near every day. There'll be cornhole and probably weed. 844-967-2789. Dick from Madison. Welcome back to the party, Dick. How you doing, man?
Hey, Dick.
Oh, pretty good. I didn't get to see much of William Barr, so it was good to hear the best of that you guys put together. My blood started to boil. It got up to about 200, just under boiling, and so I turned him off, and I had to go back to work.
Probably wise, Dick. You may have had a heart attack listening to that. It was difficult to listen to. He's such a condescending jackass. I really,
with all due respect to those types of people like myself.
Yeah, of course.
The thing is, you got to give him credit, though. He did the best of both political parties with the yes, no. There are yeses and known unknowns and known unknowns known. Rumsfeld, and then with the it depends on the.
Can you give me the context?
Well, when he was talking about whether it was okay to do.
No, not you, Dick. He kept asking. Can you give me the context? They'd ask him a straightforward question. Do you believe the president should be able to solicit foreign interference? Can you give me the context?
Well, it was just the whole thing, what little I did get to hear of it. But defending the actual act of, Trump can, do this, do that, do the other thing, and I'm going to do his. I'm just amazed by it. I've said this from the beginning with the guy. He's not the Attorney General of the United States. He is his personal attorney. And this is a real problem when you have the Attorney General of the United States
acting as a personal attorney, using the force of that position to what? Perpetuate, the backing up and squashing of interference to protect the president. That's not how it's supposed to go.
No, I thought the craziness of defending him was up to he's got going on here. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, it is unbelievable, and at the same time, Dick, somehow very believable. Thanks for the call, man.
What would Jim Santelle say? Stunning.
Stunning.
Today has been a stunning day.
844-967-2789. With regards to the protesters, maybe we'll get to a little bit more of the Bill Barr and that conversation in the happy hour. But, you know, and we've had Nikita Dodd, alderwoman here in Milwaukee. We've had her on the show before. She's a friend of ours, and I can appreciate, you know, her position. But isn't the real question that should be answered is what are these law enforcement officials doing to address the concerns of the motivated and active citizens who are protesting in front of their homes?
Well, tear gas them and arrest their asses if it makes for good campaign.
Well,
video.
maybe if they were Republicans, that's what would happen. But the DA from Dane County is a Democrat, and I'm not clear, but I would assume. But I don't know what the police chief here in Milwaukee, what his politics are. But I mean, I saw Ozan, pardon me, write a letter about the music being heard at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then the other side as well. How does that happen? I mean, if I throw a party until 1 o'clock in the morning, I kind of assume the police are going to come by and tell me to turn the music down. I mean, that's what they did in college. It's been a while since we threw a party like that. But how does the, as law as it currently stands, how is that allowed?
Dominic, any party that wraps up by 1 a.m., really not a party, is it? Just getting started.
Well, I mean, you gotta wrap up at some point. But again, obviously there's issues. There are issues. There's some people in jail that, you know, citizens apparently think should not be charged and want them out. Is there a way to address that with these citizens? Go out and meet them, man. If they're outside of your house, why would you? Are you concerned for your safety? I don't think so. I mean, I get it. They're causing problems for you, but see, that's the point. When you behave in a manner that, you know, the general citizens think is inappropriate and they are against it, some of them are going to speak out very loudly about that.
Has anybody ever protested you?
No.
I had a one-man protest outside my shop for a while. This was years ago, prior industry, but I had a one-man protest. I didn't like it. I was kind of loud and obstinate out there. And it was, to my perception, an unfair protest. I was a just business owner. I didn't even do business with that guy. He was just squawking, just being a pain.
Well, then don't bitch about it. And, you know, in a couple of days, those things sometimes go away. But if they have staying power, you know, perhaps address the crowd. 844-967-2789. Dale from Marshall, you're up. Thanks, Dale. What do you got?
Hey, Dale.
Well, I'd like to rattle a couple things off at you. There's a fellow with Black Lives Matter that's part of the 8 Can't Wait crowd, and he online listed a whole bunch of policies from different states that he thinks are pretty good and should be in wider use. Like Connecticut has a state law that no police force can hire a police officer that was fired for misconduct or that resigned while under investigation for misconduct. So why don't we have that law in Wisconsin? They also have like an open records law. I forget which state has that. There's another push to make a state deputy attorney general that only investigates police misconduct. Because right now you have DAs doing it, and DAs have to work with the police. So it sets up a conflict of interest. If you have a separate state's attorney general doing it, then you don't have the conflict of interest. What happened down in Georgia, I think it was, you had several DAs that just screwed it up because they wouldn't really prosecute the guys that were former cops.
Dale, real quick, if it is an officer-involved shooting in the state of Wisconsin, my understanding is Chris Taylor shepherded through legislation some years ago now, but it requires outside investigation. It cannot be handled by the investigating force. You know, if I work for the Madison Police Department, I cannot be investigated by the Madison Police
I've
Department.
investigated myself, and I've found myself innocent of all charges. In fact, I should get a raise.
of investigation has never had an unjustified shooting in the opinion of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Never. They've got a spotless record, Dom. Just like you, man. Come back with us. The happy hour is upon us. Plenty of time for your phone calls. You better dial them up. 844-967-2789.
Loud noises!
Put a sock on it, boy, or else you'll be out of here like shit through a goose.
Wash your hands, avoid sick people, and touching your face. There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
Milwaukee, join me, Alan Robinson, Wednesday evenings for my new show, Wiz Cannabis Radio. We're setting the record straight on cannabis in Wisconsin. Follow me at Wisco Cannabis and listen live Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. right here on Talk 1017 FM.
You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Florida Spike, the Dreamers Program. I'm Ann Cates. Florida has reported more than 9,000 COVID-19 cases today and a new daily high of 191 deaths. Correspondent Rosa Flores is in Miami.
The employee union at Jackson Health that represents more than 5,000 nurses, physicians, and other medical professionals on the front lines is demanding that the governor issue a statewide mandate. They're saying that masks are one simple thing that can be done to control this crisis.
President Trump is looking to unwind the Dreamers Program.
The president has been using the Supreme Court ruling to not end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, even though it went against his administration, as a sign that executive orders can be bold and sweeping. The program was created by an Obama order. And with that in mind, senior administration officials say the president will order changes to how so-called Dreamers are given renewals, 1 year instead of 2, and no new applications for the program, which protects persons brought into the U.S. illegally as children from deportation. For 2.5 years, President Trump has been trying to end DACA, hoping Democrats would agree to a compromise by spending more money on a border wall. Bob Costantini, Washington.
The nation's top lawyer has defended the actions of federal officers.
Attorney General William Barr addresses the killing of George Floyd.
Although the death of George Floyd at the hands of the police was a shocking event, the fact is that these events are fortunately quite rare.
In this exchange with Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, General Barr also dismissed the existence of systemic racism within the law enforcement community.
Let me continue my line of questioning.
I don't agree that there's systemic racism in the police department.
Specifically,
generally in this country.
The House Judiciary Committee's oversight hearing also touched on Barr's relationship with President Trump. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
Industrial average fell 205 points. The NASDAQ down 134. I'm Ann Cates.
Don't send in those absentee ballots just yet. Talk 1017 FM is broadcasting forums for you to hear all about candidates running to represent Milwaukee. Thursday, August 6th, meet the candidates running to represent Assembly District 17, previously held by Representative David Crowley. Tune in Friday, August 7th to hear from the candidates running for the 8th Assembly District, Representative Joe Casas-Amaripa's previous seat. Both nights, the forums will be broadcasted from 7 to 8 p.m. exclusively on Talk 1017 FM, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 1017 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Stephanie Miller Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's the Earl Ingram Show. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Wiz Cannabis Radio, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at talk1017fm.com.
The Academy of Television Arts and Sciences has unveiled the list of nominees for the 72nd Primetime Emmy Awards.
Because of the stay-at-home conditions amid the pandemic, this year may be an Emmys first, the first time most Americans will actually be familiar with all the nominees because of the desperate searches for binge entertainment, friends and family suggesting shows to watch, and people actually having time to watch them.
What is happening?
Pop TV Network's Schitt's Creek is among the best comedy series nominees, as are HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm and Insecure. Also, Netflix's Dead to Me and The Kaminsky Method. Prime Video's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is on the list again, along with The Good Place from NBC and What We Do in the Shadows from FX. The Emmys will be handed out September 20th. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
Joe Jonas is delighted to say he's a dad, but that's all you're going to get out of him. He and his wife, Game of Thrones star Sophie Turner, have announced the birth of their first child, but gave no other details about the infant. I'm Ann Cates.
Hey guys, I'm Maggie Dawn, your lady lawyer, legal eagle, and sensei of economics. Tune into my show, Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 on WRRD 1510 AM. Always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
Milwaukee, tune in from 11 to 2 on Talk 101.7 FM for the Tom Hartman program. Join the show's conversation because our democracy is not a spectator sport. Listen live Monday through Friday right here on Talk 101.7 FM, Wisconsin's political talk network.
Eric Holder, he's the former U.S. Attorney General and current chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
The notion that Scott Walker is saying that we are doing something to push partisan gerrymandering, that is the pot calling the kettle total black. I mean, that's absurd. He is one of the architects of among the most gerrymandered states in the union. All we're pushing for is a fair process come 2021.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
For 1017 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Keith Gosted with your headlines. Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm is pledging to prosecute federal agents who violate the law.
Kidnapping, false imprisonment, unlawful assault, those are simply crimes. Those are crimes no matter who commits them. Whether it's a federal agent or it's a citizen, you can't do that. Not in the United States, and it won't be tolerated here.
Are the words of the DA in speaking to the Milwaukee Common Council on Monday. The U.S. Attorney for Wisconsin's Eastern District, Matthew Krieger, is on record as saying federal agents coming to Milwaukee will focus on violent crime as relates to the city's increasing homicide rate. Milwaukee's protests have primarily consisted of peaceful marches. Milwaukee Police Department was said to be blindsided by the city's inclusion on a list of American cities that federal agents will be deployed to. You are listening to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour. And I am happy to announce Donald Trump suffers from severe Fauci envy. I mean, he's got a bad case of the Fauci envy.
Why, Fauci's credible and Trump's a huckster, and for some reason he has an issue with that?
Apparently he does, Tom. You know that Trump's now doing the coronavirus task force briefings again, right? Did one again. We skipped it. Didn't force the audience to eat their broccoli today.
But we still might if they don't jump on the phones at 844-967-2789. Sorry, Curdy, I know how you like to threaten the audience.
Well, we've got this sound fancy, Brian?
I just have 4 cuts so far. They're building.
All right, we're working on.
I'm building a big pile of broccoli for you guys.
Well, I think I can pull this one off
All
without
right.
the actual Trump sound. The headline at the Raw story, Dom, nobody likes me. Trump bemoans the fact that Dr. Fauci is more trusted than he is. Come on, the telemarketer trying to sell me swampland in Florida is more trusted than you are, sir. I read at Tuesday's White House press briefing on the coronavirus pandemic, President Donald Trump lamented the fact that the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is more respected by the general public than he is. Oh, you're right up there with herpes, sir. He's got this high approval rating, said Trump. Why don't I have a high approval rating? He added that. Nobody likes me. It could only be my personality. I don't know.
Are you freaking kidding me? Wait, what? What? This is during the coronavirus task force meeting with 150,000 Americans dead, and he's up there lamenting the fact that people don't like him?
Well, and the fact that Dr. Fauci, apparently, the ratings machine, he has very high approval ratings. Why don't I have high approval ratings? Well, Dominic, how else do we know that he's got the Fauci envy? This whole contrived story about throwing out the first pitch at the Yankees game on August 15th, right? Well, we know that Fauci was invited to throw out the first pitch at a Yankees Nationals game. And Fauci, been outside, threw it down the baseline. But it was all over the news and people were laughing about the bad throw, but they were acknowledging someone other than the Naked King. And Trump didn't like it. And Trump made a statement earlier that day. Well, I'm going to throw out a first pitch at Yankee Stadium on August 15th. But here's the troubling part, Tom. Never bothered to be invited by the Yankees.
Wow.
Never reached out to the ball club so much. And then when he canceled his anticipated first pitch thrown at Yankee Stadium, well, he surprised him again. They didn't invite him, and they didn't disinvite him. He just fabricated the whole story, Dom. He clearly has the Fauci envy.
The New York Times reports, I'll read briefly here. An hour before Fauci threw the first pitch at the season opener between the Yankees and the Nationals, Trump stood at the briefing room in the White House and declared that he too had been invited to throw out his own opening pitch. You know what I mean?
No, he hadn't.
Here's a
That's
quote.
the funny part.
Randy
So
Levine
insecure.
is a great friend of mine from the Yankees, Mr. Trump, referring to the president of the baseball team, told reporters on Thursday as Dr. Fauci was preparing to take the mound. And he asked me to throw out the first pitch. I think I'm going to do that on August 15th at Yankee Stadium. There was one problem. Trump had not actually been invited on that day by the Yankees, according to one person with knowledge of Trump's schedule. His announcement surprised both Yankee officials and the White House staff. But Mr. Trump had been so annoyed by Dr. Fauci's turn in the limelight, an official familiar with his reaction said, that he had directed his aides to call Yankee officials and make good on a long-time standing offer for Mr. Levine to throw out an opening pitch. No date was ever finalized. I mean, the man is so insecure, which is, I don't know if that's part of the narcissism, that's like overcompensating for everything, but he is so insecure that Fauci is trusted more so by the American people than he is, that he's going to just make these things up. He's going to steer the direction of administration to reach out to a private business to see if he can come play ball. I mean, what kind of mentality is that?
Well, that's your president's mentality, Dom, and some would say it marks a shift in tone for the better.
Oh, come on. I don't
I
buy
want to throw
that
this
for a
one
minute.
out there before we get to the calls this hour. A shift in tone, question mark. Some reporters never learn. Jennifer Rubin at the Post. It has happened so many times that one wonders how reporters like Charlie Brown running up to the football that Lucy snatches away every time can keep trying to spot President Trump's change in tone. They drag out the nonsensical analysis whenever Trump sounds slightly less paranoid, incoherent, and narcissistic than usual. That's not a problem today, Dom. Last Tuesday, many in the media charged up to the football once more, straining to perceive a change in tone when Trump admitted the coronavirus pandemic will get worse before it gets better, and cheering mask wearing, which he has assiduously mocked for months. This was the same news conference in which he sent well wishes to accused child sex ring conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. A week later, Trump said he had departed for North Carolina, that he wouldn't pay his respects to the late civil rights icon, John Lewis. And she writes in parentheticals, we hope this finally puts to bed the hogwash about his outreach to African-American voters, another trite media trope. She writes again, once in North Carolina, Trump declared, I really do believe a lot of governors should be opening up states that they are not opening, and we'll see what happens with them. Back to square one, the same deadly advice he has been doling out that contributed to the deaths of 145,000 Americans. Then we learned that the New York Yankees, air quotes, invitation to throw out the first pitch was a self-invitation that Trump later postponed, also air quotes. In parenthetical, she writes, he was miffed that Anthony S. Fauci, he's got the Fauci envy, the nation's top infectious disease expert, got attention for his first pitch, further evidence of his pettiness and neediness of a president whose thirst for attention and praise can never be satisfied.
Trump was not done for the day. The White House included in the relatively stingy stimulus package about $1.75 billion to keep the FBI building in D.C., something entirely unrelated to fighting the pandemic, but possibly one more instance of attempted self-dealing from the Oval Office. Trump's hotel sits across from the FBI headquarters on Pennsylvania Avenue. Yeah, I mean, a $1.75 billion building across from your hotel, making sure that the feds can come in and stay over there if they need to. Hell, if you win another election, you're going to get some guaranteed money there, Trump.
Well, even if he doesn't.
Rubin goes on to write, and with one more utterance via Twitter, Trump was back to full-blown self-pity. Illegal. Do not even bother trying to ferret out his reasoning.
Wait. Dom, got to interrupt you, man, because
right.
I think you got to read the tweet.
I don't have the tweet. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, let me read the tweet,
Please
and then I'll let you pick it up.
Please do.
Here's what Trump tweeted. So disgusting to watch Twitter, so-called trending, where three O's, many trends are about me and never a good one. They look for anything they can find, make it as bad as possible, and blow it up, trying to make it trend. Really ridiculous, illegal, and of course, very unfair. Illegal, Dom?
Illegal, question mark, writes Rubin. Do not even bother trying to ferret out his reasoning. Those who permit criticism and fail to conceal his misdeeds are enemies of the state. Surely evidence of illegality in the authoritarian rule book. Trump never changes because, as his niece and best-selling author Mary L. Trump has told one interviewer after another, he is incapable of self-reflection, admitting fault, and growing as a person. The media's fetish with tone seems to tell us more about the media than Trump. It is part of the mainstream's media collective determination to avoid spelling out how irrational and impulsive he actually is. If someone can change tone, he is capable of deliberate reflection and self-control, right? Trump never really shifts or changes. He never grows into the job because he's emotionally damaged. His niece, a psychologist, says in her book, Fred Trump destroyed Donald. He short-circuited Donald's ability to develop and experience the entire spectrum of human emotion, she writes. By limiting Donald's access to his own feelings and rendering many of them unacceptable, Fred perverted his son's perception of the world and damaged his ability to live in it. We have routinely observed Trump and his Republican enablers trying to gaslight the country by asking us to disregard what is in front of our noses. But the mainstream media engages in its own gaslighting by disingenuously presenting Trump as a rational president. If the media were to let go of the tone change routine, it might have to eschew phony balance. Trump said X, everyone outside the cult said not X. For a stark and inarguably accurate portrait of a president whose temperament, intellect, and character make him entirely unfit for his office and a threat to the republic. The media's acknowledgement of the frightening reality we have lived with for 4 years will come, I suspect, only after Trump leaves office. Jennifer Rubin. Listen to the devil's advocates. I know, man. What are you talking about?
She just doesn't have the right media. She should be podcasting us each and every day. You should as well at darnwi.com. Devil's Advocates. We laid out there 3 hours of truth, like it or not. And I got to tell you, Dom, a couple of guys last night, we were on the front stoop after the big show. What'd they come up to you and say? Are you a movie star? Are you Italian? I got to tell you, I was starting to have a little Fauci envy myself.
Hey, don't.
I'm thinking, what am I over here, chopped liver?
Hey, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Give us a call, 844-967-2789. There's no Fauci envy. There's no Dom envy. There's no crude envy. There's no fancy Brian. Oh, there might be a little fancy Brian envy. Give us a call, 844-96-PARTY. We'll be right back.
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
Today, I'm going to be a much nicer president.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary-Treasurer, Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
Milwaukee, join me, Alan Robinson, Wednesday evenings for my new show, Wiz Cannabis Radio. We're setting the record straight on cannabis in Wisconsin. Follow me at Wisco Cannabis and listen live Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. right here on Talk 1017 FM.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school systems, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slecker for Busted Pencils Radio, educated educators talking education. Tuesday nights at 7, right here on WRRD 1510 AM, Milwaukee.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services. Get your message out. Join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Santita Jackson of the Santita Jackson Show every Friday morning at 7 o'clock. Let's fix our society by fixing ourselves with the Love Doc, Dr. Brenda Wade on the Santita Jackson Show on 1017 FM.
With better reception than your tinfoil hats, why listen to any other station? Talk 1017 FM and WRD 1510 AM, Milwaukee's home for Wisconsin's political talk network.
The Devil's Advocates. Rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. Going to them now at 844-967-2789. First up, Steve. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Dom and Mike. I just have three quickies. I'd love to see Trump pitch because you can't pitch with two hands because he needs two hands to hold a cup. Number two, you guys announced the Fauci bobblehead. I bought one and I got it like last week. And now my profile on Twitter and Facebook are my Fauci head.
Nice.
My photo. And lastly, I know that black guy who was a Trump supporter was all over the news. About a week and a half ago, I walked to Outpost and I see the guy and I'm WTF. And I'm walk out of Outpost, I get my groceries, I come back and I see the guy again. I'm like, okay, Trump is a racist. And then I pause and say, well, he's a criminal too. And he shouted back at me, they're all criminals. But he couldn't answer anything about the racist call. Okay, that was it. Have a good one, you guys.
All right, Steve. Thanks for sharing.
Well,
man.
Steve, I'd like to point something out. It's mostly Putin that throws the pitches. I think Trump's the catcher.
844-967-2789. Think about baseball. Think about baseball. Think about baseball. There may not be any baseball. We'll get to that as well. Joe from Madison, you are next. Thank you for calling today. Joe, what do you got for us today?
Hey,
Well,
Joe.
I just wanted to say I'm not usually a sports fan, but I really appreciated your discussion of sports yesterday and what was happening with Major League Baseball and this darn virus, and even down to the point of what's happening with Little League in our state and games being canceled. And this ties together with today's topic because this lie that our president had about I was invited to throw the opening pitch for the Yankee game. It's okay. We're at over 20,000 lies, right, in 3.5 years. That one was a doozy. That one was really good. You know, it tied in with a national pastime. It was blatantly false. And it was just so wonderfully comical in terms of his, oh, Mr. Fauci got to do it, Dr. Fauci got to do it, but I didn't. I mean, it was perfect. So I know that because we're going to be short on sports, I'm wondering if you guys might want to have like a weekly little item where you basically do the lie of the week and kind of do a game analysis of how it went, why it went, you know, why it was a particularly good lie and how it worked. Just the kind of color commentary that I know you guys are capable of.
Well, Joe, it was so clearly inspired by Fauci envy, but in perhaps Trump's defense, you know how someone invites you over to the house, like Dom will invite me over to the house. Yeah, you should come over to the house sometime. Oh, I'll be over this weekend. Oh, this weekend I'm busy washing my hair. It might be that, you know, broadly the invitation was extended by the air quotes friend, the owner of the Yankees, but ultimately it's, you know, like one of those offers that, I hope the other guy never takes you up on.
Yeah, right. And factually, he did not. He was not invited that day. Factually, it was not true. So I would encourage you, you know, with the sports kind of looking a bit grim over the next several months, this is an opportunity for you guys. I just really think I love the sports discussion yesterday, and I think this is a good place to apply that same sort of analysis. That's mine for today. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Joe, if you loved it so much, how come you didn't call us yesterday?
I think Joe called yesterday.
During the sports portion of the show. No one called us during the Sports Talk Live portion.
Do we have any updates, Brian? I know you're the baseball man. Apparently, another 4 Florida Marlins baseball players have tested positive for COVID-19.
Yes. 4 more Marlins have tested positive today. They actually won't play through Sunday. They're rescheduling games. Baltimore is going to play the New York Yankees instead. So if you remember, the Marlins played the Phillies, right?
Right.
The Phillies are now in isolation. The Phillies postponed their game against the New York Yankees. Well, the Yankees haven't done anything and haven't been exposed, and they don't have anyone to play, and they're supposed to play Baltimore anyway. The cool thing is about this whole thing is that they're staying on each coast or in the central area, so they're all going to play each other anyway. So they basically just rescheduled the whole season so far just to go and hold on for the Marlins to come back. People are saying there's a really good chance that not everybody's going to play all 60 games, and there's a move to actually change the outcome of the season rather than the record to be winning percentage so that it doesn't reflect the entire 60 games.
Can I make a confession as a baseball fan? And I'm glad you called on Brian today, because here's my confession. I was watching the Brewer game, the rain-delayed Brewer game last night on the FS1. And we were going into the 9th inning, and I'm like, oh, man, Brewers are down like 4 runs. They've been getting their asses handed to them. The bats are cold. They haven't really strung together 2 hits all night. I'm turning it off. And the Brewers came back 4 runs down, tied it up, won in extra innings. It is the first time they have come back from 4 runs down since like 2004.
See,
I'm thinking, what's the likelihood? Well, apparently it was 100% last night, and I blew it. I missed the best comeback in 16
you never
years.
turn it off. Brian, what was the quote from the ball player, if you would, please?
Sean Doolittle. And I may be paraphrasing here, but
Sure.
essentially it's this. Sports are the reward for having a functioning society.
Sports are the reward for having a functioning society. We do not have a functioning society right now. Not with this pandemic, certainly not with this president. I don't see how this season continues, but, I'm not the sports guy. That's Crudy and Brian.
Why would Trump even want to throw out the first pitch if there's no audience in the stands?
Well, he didn't think it. Maybe that's why he canceled or postponed it, because he realized, oh my God, no one's going to be there anyway. Why would I do that?
Well, if there was an audience in the stands, he would never show up to do that because, of course, they'd boo his ass. You know, he'd be getting the Bronx cheer in New York, no doubt. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. More of your phone calls. And sad news, Dom. Don Jr., Fredo, had his Twitter account limited.
Oh, no.
For tweeting out some false information about hydroxychloroquine. Go figure.
Frankly, Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person.
Well, let's give him credit. At least he didn't spike himself.
Fun, damn it.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Walton, chair of the Milwaukee County Democratic Party. I'm here today to encourage you to sign up for an absentee ballot at myvote.wi.gov. An absentee ballot is the quickest, safest way we can encourage everyone to come out and vote in these upcoming elections. Make sure you sign your affidavit envelope and have a witness sign as well. The August 11th election is a partisan primary. You can only vote for one party. Go to myvote.wi.gov. This message is paid for by the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Hello, my name is Marquesa Tucker, Director of the African American Roundtable and co-founder of Liberate MKE. We recently relaunched our Liberate MKE campaign, requesting a $75 million divestment from the Milwaukee Police Department. We want a $50 million reinvestment for public health initiatives and a $25 million reinvestment to support housing cooperatives. We encourage everyone to check out our website, liberatemke.com, and join our campaign to support defunding the police. Let's liberate MKE and support building healthy communities that can thrive.
If you're like a lot of companies, you know you need IT, but you aren't sure where to start. That's where Five Nines comes in. Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO. For almost 15 years, Five Nines has been providing IT solutions to companies just like yours. We'll show you the solutions that are right for your business and give you the roadmap to success in the future. Find us at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin on historic Brady Street. The Roman Coin was originally a Pabst Tight House built by Frederick Pabst in 1890 to sell Pabst beer. It was even designed by the same architect who designed the Pabst Theater. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's historic, pet-friendly, cash-only, order-in classic corner tavern.
Live via phone, he is former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle.
Firing Bob Mueller doesn't mean that the prosecution, the investigation goes away. Pardoning one individual does not mean that you undo everything that has been done before. So this notion that somehow by shutting down and by pardoning and by sort of stopping the process, you're also stopping the wheels of justice is simply, again, it's simply wrong.
The Devil's Advocates, weekday afternoons on 1510 a.m. Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. From Sheboygan to Racine, WRRD 1510 AM is news talk radio built for the 99%. Rural Wisconsin's home for Wisconsin's political talk network.
For 1017 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Keith Gostad with your headlines. In-person early voting for the August primary started today in Wisconsin. If you are looking to vote ahead of time, the polls are open in Milwaukee at the Frank P. Zeidler building downtown, Manitoba School at 4040 West Forest Home, and Midtown Center at 5700 West Capitol Drive. In Madison, the city clerk's office has listed several locations for drive-up absentee early voting. You can call 608-266-4601 before you leave to make sure your early voting site is open in case of inclement weather. Highs today in the mid-80s with partly cloudy skies. Overnight chance of scattered thunderstorms with highs in the mid-upper 60s. Wednesday, highs in the mid 80s with partly cloudy skies. You are listening to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Bring it. It's already been brought you. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. The happy hour continues. And I'm happy to report some trouble in Trump land. Don Jr. has had his Twitter services restrained. I mean, that's got to be illegal or something, right? Let me read briefly from the Post. Twitter on Tuesday penalized Donald Trump Jr. for posting misinformation about hydroxychloroquine, the social media giant said, underlining the tough stance it has taken in policing misleading posts from high-profile users, including President Trump in recent months. Twitter said that it ordered the president's son to delete your account. No, delete the misleading tweet, and that it would limit some account functionality for 12 hours. Oh, man, what a slap on the wrist that is. Trump Jr. can still direct message followers using his account, but cannot tweet, retweet, or like other tweets during the 12-hour restriction. Oh, how sad. Donald Trump Jr. deleted tweet now shows a notice that says this tweet is no longer available because it violated the Twitter rules. The tweet, which featured a viral video showing a group of doctors making misleading and false claims about the coronavirus pandemic, was directly tweeted by Trump Jr.'s account. That contrasts with his father, who retweeted multiple tweets from others showing clips of the same video to his 84.2 million followers Monday night. So Trump did it too. The old man and the kid, they're both guilty, Dom, of misinforming the public.
They
via
did the
Twitter.
same thing? Trump and Donnie Jr. both tweeted the same thing?
Don Jr. must have directly tweeted the source information, where Trump Sr. only retweeted different excerpts of the misinforming coronavirus.
Gotcha. All right.
tweets.
And apparently, Donald Trump, the president, not my president, spoke today on this issue. We have a little sound. Fancy Brian Sleuthen finding it. If you would, please play it.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'm towards the end of this. Keep in mind as you're doing this, how much do you think Donald Trump actually reads of anything at all? Think about that when you're thinking about this, and listen to this brilliant sound.
All right.
There was a group of doctors yesterday, a large group that were put on the internet, and for some reason the internet wanted to take them down and took them off. I guess Twitter took them off, and I think Facebook took them off. I don't know why. I think they're very respected doctors. There was a woman who was spectacular in her statements about it, that she's had tremendous success with it. And they took her voice off. I don't know why they took her off, but they took her off. Maybe they had a good reason. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I can only say that from my standpoint, and based on a lot of reading and a lot of knowledge about it, I think it could have a very positive impact in the early stages. And I don't think you lose anything by doing it, other than politically, it doesn't seem to be too popular. You know why? Because I recommend it. When I recommend something, they like to say, don't use it. John?
There's President Trump talking about these highly respected doctors and the hydroxychloroquine. Well, it just so happens the Daily Beast is reporting, and Creative needs your help on this one as well. Here's the headline. Trump's new favorite COVID doctor believes in alien DNA, demon sperm, and hydroxychloroquine. The president is pushing a coronavirus.
Doesn't everybody?
The coronavirus theories of a Houston doctor who also says sexual visitations by demons and alien DNA are at the root of Americans' common health concerns.
Devil's Triangle.
I'm going to jump into this one. This sounds exciting. A Houston doctor who praises hydroxychloroquine says that face masks aren't necessary to stop transmission of the highly contagious coronavirus has become a star on the right-wing internet, garnering tens of millions of views on Facebook on Monday alone. Donald Trump Jr. declared, the video of Stella Emanuel a must-watch, while Donald Trump himself retweeted the video. Before Trump and his supporters embrace Emanuel's medical expertise, though, they should consider other medical claims Emanuel has made, including those about alien DNA and the physical effects of having sex with witches and demons in your dreams.
I'm a fan of man.
I have so many names. Emanuel, a pediatrician and a religious minister, has a history of making bizarre claims about medical topics and other issues. She has often claimed that gynecological problems like cysts and endometriosis are in fact caused by people having sex in their dreams with demons and witches. She alleges that alien DNA is currently used in medical treatments and that scientists are cooking up a vaccine to prevent people from being religious. And despite appearing in Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress on Monday, she has said that the government is run in part not by humans, but by reptilians and other aliens.
Oh,
Do you think?
I have so many names.
Do you think she watched that show V-Don?
The original or the remake? Emanuel gave her viral speech on the steps of the Supreme Court at the White Coat Summit, a gathering of a handful of doctors who call themselves America's frontline doctors and dispute the medical consensus on the novel coronavirus. The event was organized by the right-wing group Tea Party Patriots, which is backed by wealthy Republican donors. In her speech, Emanuel alleges, Emanuel alleges that she has
Man, I
successfully...
gotta get you some alien DNA, get you back to healthy, fella.
Has apparently alleges she has successfully treated hundreds of patients with hydroxychloroquine, a controversial treatment Trump has promoted and says he has taken himself. Studies have failed to find proof that the drug has any benefit in treating COVID-19, and the Food and Drug Administration in June revoked its emergency authorization to use it to treat the deadly virus, saying it hadn't demonstrated any effect on patients' mortality prospects. Nobody needs to get sick, Emanuel said. This virus has a cure. Emanuel said,
well, Dominic, you don't get it, man. You need to use a little bit of zinc with the hydroxychloroquine, and a little ground up demon penis always helps.
If you can get some of that, let me know. Emanuel said in her speech that the supposed potency of hydroxychloroquine as a treatment means that protective face masks aren't necessary, claiming that she and her staff had avoided contracting COVID-19 despite wearing medical masks instead of the more secure N95 masks. Hello, you don't need a mask. There is a cure, Emanuel said. Toward the end of Emanuel's speech, the event organizers and other participants can be seen trying to get her away from the microphone, but footage of the speech captured by Breitbart was a hit online, becoming a top video on Facebook and amassing roughly 13 million views, significantly more than Plandemic, another coronavirus disinformation video that became a viral hit online in May when it amassed roughly 8 million Facebook views. Hydroxychloroquine trended on Twitter as Emanuel's video was embraced by the Trumps, combative student group Turning Point USA, and pro-Trump personalities like Diamond and Silk. Both Facebook and Twitter eventually deleted videos of Emanuel's speech from their sites, citing rules against COVID-19 disinformation. The deletion set off yet another round of complaints by conservatives of bias at the social media platforms. Crudy Emanuel responded in her own way, declaring that Jesus Christ would destroy Facebook servers if her videos weren't restored to the platform.
Now, here is what she tweeted. Stella Emanuel MD at Stella_Emanuel. Hello, Facebook. Put back my profile page and videos up on your computers with start crashing till you do. With start crashing till you do. I didn't misread it. She miswrote it.
I'm smart and I want respect.
You are not bigger than God. Actually, it says you are not bigger that God. Not than God, that God. I promise you, if my page is not back up, Facebook will be down in Jesus' name. Hallelujah, Dom. A little bit more here. Emanuel is a registered physician in Texas. Of course she is. According to the Texas Medical Board database, and operates a medical clinic out of a strip mall next to her church, Firepower Ministries. Emanuel was born in Cameroon and received her medical degree in Nigeria in a GoFundMe legal defense fund. Why would she need that? Which swelled from just $90 to $1,616 hours after her speech. That's not huge growth, is it? I mean, it's sort of disappointing on both scales, 90 or like $1,600. She got viewed 13 million times. I read on. Emanuel claims, without offering any proof, that members of a Houston networking group for women physicians are scheming to take her medical license away from her over her support for hydroxychloroquine. It's not clear whether anyone is actually trying to take Emanuel's license, but many of her earlier medical claims are definitely ludicrous. In sermons posted on YouTube and articles on her website, Emanuel claims that medical issues like endometriosis, cyst, infertility, and impotence are caused by sex with spirit husbands and spirit wives, a phenomenon Emanuel describes essentially as witches and demons having sex with people in dream world. I do have a vibrant dream world life, Don.
Oh, come on, man. Here's the quote from Emanuel. They are responsible for serious gynecological problems. We call them all kinds of names. Endometriosis. We call them molar pregnancies. We call them fibroids. We call them cysts. But most of them are evil deposits from the spirit husband, Emanuel said on the medical issues in the 2013 sermon. They are responsible for miscarriages, impotence, men that can't get it up. In her sermon, Emanuel offers a sort of demonology of Nephilim, the biblical characters she claims exist as demonic spirits and lust after dream sex with humans, causing all matter of real health problems and financial ruin. Financial ruin? Emanuel claims real-life ailments such as fibroid tumors and cysts stem from the demon sperm after demon dream sex, an activity she claims affects many women. Quote, they turn into a woman and then they sleep with the man and collect his sperm, Emanuel said in her sermon. Then they turn into the man and they sleep with the man and deposit the sperm and reproduce more of themselves. According to Emanuel, people can tell if they have taken a demonic spirit husband or spirit wife if they had a sex dream about someone they know or a celebrity, wake up aroused, stop getting along with their real world spouse, lose money, or generally experience any hardship.
Here, I thought that was just because I bought radio stations, Don.
I didn't see balding in there either, Crudy. Alternatively,
damn.
They could just be alternatively, they could just be having dream sex with a human witch instead of a demon, she posits. There are those that are called astral sex, she said in the sermon. That means this person is not really a demon being or a Nephilim.
But she's a witch.
It's just a human being that's a witch, and they astral project and sleep with people. Emanuel's bizarre medical ideas don't stop with demon sex and dreams in 2015.
I never knew Joe was a witch.
In 2015, she laid out a supposed Illuminati plan hatched by a witch to destroy the world using abortion, gay marriage, and children's toys, among other things. Emanuel claimed that DNA from space aliens is currently being used in medicine. They're using all kinds of DNA, even alien DNA, to treat people. There's more. I mean, that's not it. There's more.
Emanuel's website offers a prayer to remove a generational curse originally received from an ancestor, but transmitted sexually, apparently, and Emanuel's telling through placenta. Well, it came from the mom. Emanuel claimed in another 2015 sermon posted that scientists had plans to install microchips in people and develop a vaccine to make it impossible to become religious. They found the gene in somebody's mind that makes you religious so they can vaccinate against it. Yes, please give me the vaccine for whatever.
Oh my God.
She's selling.
This is who Trump said is very respected. This is the person. This is she has problems with the magic 8-ball. And she hates the LGBTQ. Of course she does.
The DNA from the aliens, Dom, that's just fine with you, though? But only the good stuff. If it cures you of something, I don't know what ails you, but come back. We'll fix it. 844-967-2789.
We have found the witch. May we burn her?
What can a guy ask?
Oh, the
A 6 demon bag. Terrific. A 6 demon bag. Sensational. What's in it, Egg?
Wind, fire, all that kind of thing.
Transistor.
Sign on with the devil.
I'm smart and I want respect.
Oh my God.
For democracy to work, organized labor must be part of the process. This is Tom Bennett, Secretary-Treasurer at Teamsters Local 200 here in Milwaukee. Beginning on August 17th, the Milwaukee DNC 2020 Convention across America shall motivate, mobilize, and make our voices as a voice of leadership and reason. Make your voice heard. Join the Teamsters. Please visit teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200.
We know small businesses are navigating uncharted waters right now due to the lasting effects of COVID-19 and social unrest. As an independent radio network, we want to support our community. So Talk 1017 FM is announcing Pay It Forward grants to provide advertising to small businesses and help them get back on their feet. So nominate your small business for a Pay It Forward grant with Talk 1017 FM. Give us a call at 608-819-8255 or go to talk1017fm.com. Let's get through this, everyone. Don't send in those absentee ballots just yet. Talk 1017 FM is broadcasting forums for you to hear about candidates running to represent Milwaukee. Thursday, August 6th, meet the candidates running to represent Assembly District 17, previously held by Representative David Crowley. Tune in Friday, August 7th to hear the candidates running for the 8th Assembly District, Representative Jocasta Zamaripa's previous seat. Both nights, the forums will be broadcasted from 7 to 8 p.m. exclusively on Talk 1017 FM, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Hey, Farmer Bill here. You know aronia berries are really good for you. They have an intense, tangy flavor that will make your smoothies and cereal come alive. You can find fresh, frozen, and aronia juice concentrate in Madison at Medcalf's, Willie Street Co-op, and Woodman's, and in Milwaukee at Outpost stores. Or you can find us at our website, organicaronia.com, where you can even order bushes for some beautiful edible landscaping. Support your body with Bellbrook Berry Farm's locally, organically grown aronia berries, and thanks from our crew.
Kofefi, hamburgers, smocking gun. Tired of trying to decode the tweeter in chief? Make sure you follow the greatest radio station ever, Talk 1017 FM.
Women want them. Men want to be them. Tom and Cruz are the devil's advocates.
Daddy, can I go with you? I said, yes, you can.
And demons want to have sex with them. We are the Devil's Advocates. Thank you for listening. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, call right now, 844-967-2789.
What sort of groupies do you suppose the Devil's Advocates might have, if not sleeping demons that visit us?
Come on, man. This is literally, I mean, I try to be, as the non-believer, but this is, I try to be somewhat just a skosh respectful to people who don't believe like me. That's fine. Religious, everyone does their thing. But let me just read briefly in her sermon, this is Emmanuel. Again, this is one of the doctors Donald Trump said today specifically was very, very respected. And of course, the video she was in was taken down by the social medias, and Donald Trump doesn't know why that is. In the sermon, Emmanuel preserves special vitriol for the Magic 8-Ball, a toy that can be shaken up to reveal any answer. Emmanuel claims the otherwise innocuous Magic 8-Ball was in fact a scheme to get children used to witchcraft. The 8-Ball was a psychic, she said. Yeah, that's what she said. This is Donald Trump's.
True.
Yes, Emmanuel also has used her pulpit to preach hatred of LGBT people. Shortly before the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, she warned her flock that gay marriage meant that very soon people are going to be seeking to marry children, and accused gay Americans of practicing homosexual terrorism. She also claimed that children need to be whipped. She's down with the corporal punishment, but she did add that children shouldn't be abused.
Can we marry dogs?
And finally, she has also alleged that masks of all kinds are superfluous because she says COVID-19 can be easily cured with hydroxychloroquine. But in a Facebook video advertising her clinic, Emmanuel said anyone seeking treatment should wear a face mask before entering the clinic. How about they use
Oh,
a
they haven't
magic
been
8-ball?
traded yet, Dom.
How about they use a magic 8-ball to see if they should actually wear a mask? This is insanity, people. Literally, this is insanity.
What, Tom? If you have impotence, you don't believe the
impotence?
You got demon penis? If the
That's
president
amazing.
suffers, I
How do you
suspect
do
it's
that?
because of his Fauci envy.
A lot of Fauci envy. You got to think about the baseball. 844-967-2789. Alan, you are next. Thanks for calling today. Alan, what do you got for us?
Hey, Alan.
Hey guys, where did you say where she got her doctorate from?
She's from Cameroon. I think I said Nigeria.
But she is
Okay,
licensed
so yeah.
as a physician in the great state of Texas.
So she did her PhD thesis on demon sex. Like that's probably a thing. Like,
well, my impression is she is a medical doctor, not a PhD. She apparently did her med school, and perhaps learned some stuff that they didn't teach at the med schools locally. Alan.
Yeah. Oh, so I heard a report a couple days ago that just a little side note on the whole like extraterrestrial thing. The military has reported that they have found vehicles that they don't believe were built on this planet. I just heard that report from valid source, and
yeah, I think the New York Times. Yeah, Alan, I think the New York Times may have reported on their, they're not calling them UFOs anymore. And I think the headline was not like whether or not we believe in them. You don't believe in the sun. You don't believe in the moon. These are things that are here. What we need to do is understand them. Yes.
So I had this conversation with my mom years ago, like, and I'm an atheist. She was not. And, we had a conversation and I was just like, I cannot wait until aliens actually land here so that all the people that believe in God can just shut up. Like, that's my opinion on it. So, then we
maybe
wouldn't have
that
people
will be
talking like
God.
this woman.
And I also hear,
sorry about that, Alan.
Do you know Dominic is unofficially known as the smoking man?
I don't smoke anymore. 844-967-2789.
Tell the truth, Bill Barr.
If there is alien DNA being used in medicine, I mean, presumably, I mean, the DNA, RNA strands of human, they're very specific, right? I think you could do an experiment and determine
something like a DNA test,
whether or not that's actually the case. But that is actually the least crazy of all the things that this person is saying, and then Trump and Junior are retweeting that. Brock from Horicon, you are up. You will probably have the last word today. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
So I can't figure out, being in the medical profession, if masks are such a bad idea, why do you wear them, or why does everybody on the med surg floor and in the surgery room have them on along with personal protective equipment to block the transmission and spread of viruses they're carrying to somebody in a sterile environment? They would have done away with that practice a long time ago had there not been actual data to back it up. I don't mean
same
Trump
reason we say God bless you
and,
when you sneeze, Brock. That keeps the demons out of you, fella.
oh no, I invite the demons in. The heck with it. They can. I'm ready for it. But I don't understand that. And Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA have all decided that it is financially irresponsible for them to have fans and are worried about lawsuits. So if there's a Hulk, what are they worried about a lawsuit from? Why aren't there fans in this game? Why are we talking about bubbles? They're not in the business of losing money, and there's a zero chance that any of these kooks that Trump shots out are more in line with the legal ramifications than the lawyers the NBA or the NFL have.
Right. Yeah, great point,
I'd
Brock.
like to leave you with that. Love the show.
All right,
Later.
thanks, brother. Appreciate that. No doubt. Think about this for just a minute, if you will. Baseball, America's pastime, played by millionaires, employed by billionaires. with all the resources at their disposal to mitigate the risk, and they couldn't stop it. And so you're going to think that, you know, poor school kids sneezing on each other in the third grade, that somehow the teachers and the school systems are going to be able to stop that. This is, of course, just foolishness. We're being gaslit. There's not going to be sports. There's not going to be school until there's a vaccine.
Dominic, I think I've deciphered the actual cause of the Fauci envy. Let's not forget, on Saturday Night Live, Brad Pitt played Fauci. Alec Baldwin. The chubby Alec Baldwin, not the earlier handsome Alec Baldwin, plays Trump, who doesn't like that much. Thank you to our fine guest, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. Stick around. Educated educators talking education. Busted Pencils with Dr. Tim Slecker is next.
I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies.
It sounds interesting to me.
Because I'm cognitively there.